The broadcast is live. Here
Here
we go.
Here we are on All Hallows Eve.
Eve.
Coming across from two continents, different time zones, to talk about stuff,
Oh, this is good for Halloween. The new Cerebus issue is scary in theme.
Ooh.
It's the Vault of Cerebus.
Oh, that's fantastic. It was time. It was time.
Did a nice job on this cover. This is a weird issue. I was just reading it today.
And it's a number one.
Yeah, they all are, annoyingly, which means they're hard to put on your pull list. This one broke format for part of the issue and went because it went regular comic vertical instead of its normal here in the middle. It went horizontal again, web comic horizontal. And in the back, it went back to vertical. But it's funny because it was a roller coaster reading this one because the beginning part of it was Glamour Puss, his, I guess you'd call it, model character from the comic Glamour Puss, which really wasn't anything but a drawing of a pretty woman. But he made her a zombie in this one. So like the first third of this comic is zombie Glamour Puss singing karaoke. And she doesn't have her jaw attached right, so she's singing karaoke like Elmer Fudd. And like the narrator, Dave Sim, is making fun of her singing karaoke like Elmer Fudd. And somehow that all worked for me. But then by the time I got to the end, and then it, like I said, then it switched over to normal Cerebus sort of comic strip stuff, which was okay, but not great this issue. Then by the time we got to the end was this weird other Glamour Puss stuff that I was just like, all right, this isn't funny. I'm tired of this. This can end now. So it's like the beginning part I really liked. The middle was okay. And the end I was like, all right, the jokes here are terrible.
I tell you what, I don't know when, I don't know where, I don't know how, and it may not be in my lifetime, but I'm just going to be a Cerebus resurgence where those 300 issues are rediscovered. You know how Moby Dick came out and later it became a thing?
Right.
I kind of think that's going to be it.
I think Dave Sim has to die first.
Huh?
I think Dave Sim has to die first.
Yeah.
Maybe not.
Well, Dave Sim being an eccentric doesn't help people embrace Cerebus. But we like eccentrics once they're dead.
And it's kind of wild because with Cerebus, you've got so many eras of the book. You got the Conan years. Then you have the good years, and then you have the we thought it was unreadable, but when we go back, it's pretty good. And then you got the he's getting drunk year, and then after that, you got the stuff where you're like he's trying to say something here. What's he trying to say? And they're not going to know he just went a little bit crazy from the schizophrenia, and religion.
His sober religious years are the ones that are pretty unreadable at the end.
Yeah.
Well, like I said,
the only way he can be rediscovered while still alive if he moves to France.
There you go.
The academia there will want to do exhibits with him.
Yeah.
Did you guys by any chance see this cartoon? This one panel? I don't know what it's from. Again, it's the social media. For the people that weren't listening to us before we came on air, couldn't do it. I've been sick all week, so I got to play around on social media. I got to stay home a few days. But somewhere along the line,
clear.
Huh?
I said, but his COVID test was clear.
I'm negative. None there. Yeah. Went and got a cheeseburger to celebrate. But the thing is it might have been like, I think I actually follow a Crumb account or something on Instagram. Right. But it was this one panel, and it was just Crumb has drawn himself. And Crumb is pretty honest with how he looks. He doesn't really try to, he tries to be accurate, I think. He doesn't
go flattery going on, really.
There you go. That's the word exactly. Flattery going on. And he says something like, I can't complain. And I think he's talking about being at the end of his life. But he said there, he says, I can't complain. I've had great sex and I've got to do what I love and something else and something else. And I'm just sort of like 4 things. He made 3 or 4 things to the end of his life. And he's like, it's enough. It's enough, you know. But it just blew my mind how he started out with like, I've had unbelievable sex you couldn't imagine. That might have been exactly how he put it.
Well, I saw some Crumb backlash. Must have been last winter. A lot of Crumb backlash on Twitter. But of course he's in France, so he probably didn't see any of it. But you know, a lot of younger people not liking Crumb because he's open about his racism and weird women fetishes. So none of that was landing well with them.
Well, there's things about Crumb that he acknowledges. That's kind of why
they're not supposed to be flattering. They're supposed to be the horrible things that are inside him.
Yep. But the thing with Crumb, though, is that to me, let's see if I can find the word here. You have to understand art to understand Crumb. Yeah. You have to understand, you know, and if you don't understand art, you don't even need to be talking about Crumb. Right. That's the difference with Crumb.
Obviously didn't. He's holding up a mirror to himself, his own flaws and society's.
That's why I love doing this show with you guys. You get it. You really get it. You know. Yeah, it's a man, you know, I think the perfect word is he doesn't flatter. There's no flattery going on about himself.
Just the opposite.
He doesn't go so far, though, as to be self-loathing. You know what I mean? He's got that in there. He's got that in some stories and some things he does, but that's what he's exploring. I'm in a self-loathing mood right now, you know.
This is all the dark stuff that's inside me, and it's dark.
Yeah. Yeah.
And here's the weird stuff inside me that I don't know where it comes from.
Yeah. In an odd way, when he brings up some of that, and some of that stuff, I think he does turn up a little bit for the artistic storytelling.
Yeah.
But the thing about it is, though, is that it's a redeeming quality. While he exposes the weird stuff in his head and the fetish and all this stuff and everything, his honesty about it and owning it and being honest with you in himself is actually a redeeming quality.
And we all as human beings have weird, dark stuff in ourselves, but most people don't want to look at it.
Right.
It offends them to even be reminded it's there.
Yeah. Yeah. And of course, I'm sure we've all seen Crumb, the documentary from the 90s, right? Yeah.
That was good.
Yeah. It might have been you I was talking to, Jared. Somebody told me that after he went to France, at the end of the documentary, he goes to, that's what he said. He said he has a fantastic, unimaginable record collection that people couldn't even fathom. He's had a great sex and something else, you know. But anyway, he goes to France, and somebody told me that once he got to France and he had watched the documentary, he finally got into counseling. And that's why you don't have a lot of – he really just finally went into counseling and committed to it, which is why you haven't really, which is kind of funny why they're trying to, you know, have the backlash against him now. You know what I mean? His journey has gone on and on and on. And right when you got a guy, you know, that just, you know, he just owns everything he's done. You know, he doesn't make excuses.
Right. No, you know, what's funny for me, what really cemented Crumb as a master in my mind was his Book of Genesis.
Yeah.
I mean, he did a sort of a completely straight cartoon adaptation of the Book of Genesis, and it was just masterful. It was just like, I was like, wow, this, I mean, you know, not like he needed me to acknowledge him, but it was just like, wow, there was none of his normal dark stuff in there. It was all just kind of straightforward cartooning, and it was just masterful.
Yeah. It amazed me, his longevity. Growing up, I mean, I found Crumb because in the house we had the Fritz the Cat cartoons. And then there was some, we had some of those, I don't know what they were. There were so many of them, but like I said, I've said before, the stepdad went to head shop, so I'd have like some of this Crumb stuff. And one of the first Crumb stories I read was the one about the nuclear family and screwing around with the kids and the mom being a dominatrix. And that was like one of the first Crumb works. And I was like 7 or 8. So if there's anybody that should not have liked Crumb, it should have been me. But it put a dent in my brain, and I was disturbed. But at the same time, I'm like, how's he not in jail? The mystery of how Crumb is not in jail and nobody's judging him. Even at 7 or 8 years old, that's what was getting me. Like, how was this published? Why is nobody going after him? That's what fascinated me.
One of my favorite Crumb, just a single panel, which, back in our Marvel bullpen days, I forget which book I got. I think I got it in the Crumb Women book. But we used to we had that panel like hanging up because it describes so many cartoonists. And it was Robert Crumb, young Robert Crumb, sitting at his drawing table drawing. And he's thinking about, like, there's a little panel of a woman laughing at him. And it said, and the panel, and he's saying to himself, I'll show them all. And there's a little panel pointing to him that says, a bitter, twisted dude. He never got over it. And we used to laugh at that. So it's like, there are so many of us sitting there drawing, thinking that same thing. I'll show them all.
That's hilarious. That's awesome. That is
I've
awesome.
known a lot of bitter, twisted dudes who are cartoonists.
As a young kid, finding probably his most twisted story, you know what I mean, and reading it then, it's when I was older that I found this one story, and maybe in his, might be in this book table I have, or this table book, or whatever it is. Whatever. Anyway, thank you. Coffee table book. Thank you. And in it, he took a cartoon that he and his brother had done when they were like, probably in elementary school. A fuzzy bear adventure, and they're finding like magic carpets, and I mean, this thing could have been a Walt Kelly story, you know what I mean? And he redrew it in his older age. So I found his most twisted story as a kid, and then as an adult, I found his most wholesome. So I was like,
his older brother was talented too.
Huh?
His older brother was talented.
Yeah, I think what's odd is I think his brother was a true artist.
Yeah, his older brother may have had more natural talent than Crumb.
That's what I'm saying. He was
Crumb worked at it really. It's like there's such a thing as natural talent, but if you don't work at it, you never get adult, grown-up talent.
Yeah,
and you could have not much talent sort of as a kid and work on it like Crumb did, and have grown up real talent. I think his brother had a lot of natural talent as a kid. And if he had worked on it, he could have had real grown up talent. But that's what happens to that's what's weird about art, because having been to art school, it's not the most talented kids in art school who keep going or make it. Because often what happens is the most talented kid when you're like 16 or 18, they've got some natural talent, but it's easy for them. But once they have to do grown-up work talent, they're not interested anymore, so they stop. So you can be the most talented kid at 18 or 20, and then you're done making art by the time you're 22, because when it gets hard, you're gone. Because the reason they were there the whole time was because that's what they were good at. That's what it was easy at. So it's often like the guys who are kind of in art school who are kind of in the middle of the pack, but keep growing because they're putting in the time and they're developing adult talent that make it, rather than the talented kids who go so far and then go, this is too much work, I'm out of here.
Yeah, not used to failure.
Yeah. Well, in my circle, in my school, my little elementary school, and my little middle school, and in high school, I was that guy that was the artist. Now, what's amazing about it is, by the time I was 24, I had to let it go, work, family, whatever. I'd dabble here, whatever. And but what kills me is that two of my friends who never picked up a pencil, and they would watch me instead of, like, we'd be in math class and I'm drawing and I do not give a shit if the teacher sees me or not. The people who would watch me, two of them went off to be tattoo artists, and one of them put the tattoo on my wife's scar that I got her for her birthday last year. And I was actually thinking about what you were saying last year, like
Yeah.
And, this guy never even picked up a pencil. He just watched me. He watched me in my apartment and stuff. We knew each other. I knew him since he was born. My stepdad was his parents' best man at their wedding. And so so it just kind of blew my mind that here he is with an actual career owning a tattoo. He tattooed one of the members of Slayer when he was in Knoxville.
Oh, okay.
I mean, he's not just a tattoo artist; he's a successful one.
Right,
so
right.
So it kind of goes with what you're saying.
Yeah.
Which blows my mind. What's up, Scott? Did you make it?
Oh my God. I don't know if there's something going on downtown today or what, but traffic was almost like a home football game. It's crazy.
I almost want to say Big Lick Comic Book Con is going on, but that's in Roanoke.
And that's tomorrow, and that wouldn't have any traffic around here. So.
Yeah, you're not going to that, are you?
No, I do need to go to Roanoke tomorrow to pick up a couple guitars I dropped off to set up. I thought about it, but I was like, no. Not
the second comic,
COVID mess.
Oh, yeah. The second comic of the week was Adler #5, which I think this wraps up the story. I don't know if this, being that it's an indie comic, I have no idea if this is going to continue or not, or if it's a one trade paperback series. I just don't know. But this wraps up the first story arc. Is there going to be a second story arc? Who puts this one out? Titan. I don't think Titan does a lot of second story arcs in their comics. So evening.
If you're not sure that there's going to be a second story arc, maybe they should change the title from Adler to Idler.
Quit laughing at him, Paolo. You just encourage him.
What's going on?
I only sarcastically laugh at him.
You don't have an appreciation for proper inserted puns.
I do not.
European humor is like their food. Once you get a taste, you won't go back here.
Then we've got a True Believers, which is Marvel 2-in-1 number 10.
Or Black Widow.
Actual issue.
Who is
for
this?
That movie that's not coming out.
Chris Claremont, Bob Hall, and Klaus Janson.
Bob
I don't
Hall.
know if I've ever read this. Probably,
I have the book. I have a book. Yeah.
It's not the greatest art I've ever seen. It's the definition to me of mediocre 70s Marvel art. But for $1, I'll read it again.
Bob Hall actually is pretty interesting. He's not that guy that you remember. You have to start looking at his art to spot the stuff that he did well. Because when I was rereading the Squadron Supreme trade paperback,
that's his much later stuff.
Yeah, it's in 1985. But the thing is, I really didn't care because at first, this Bob Hall guy doesn't really do much. He's just a fill-in artist.
Right, that's what he always was.
He can't do that house style, and then Paul Ryan at the beginning of his career takes over the mini series and is much better. But then I started going over. Wait a minute.
Pardon me. This was Bob Brown, not Bob Hall. I always.
Okay, different guy.
Different guy. But they're both kind of the same.
I found it very amusing that Paulo just spat out 1985 off his memory like nothing. If somebody asked me when a book was published, I'm like, 20th century, 21st century, don't know.
No, I'm with Paolo on this one. I was like, I was right with him. To me, it sounded like we were talking normal. I
remember Star Wars came out in 77 and Back in Black came out in 80, and then after that, it's kind of
here we go.
Iffy after that.
But music, I never remember when music came out.
I did not like the Adler character in the Sherlock TV show. I didn't think they did her justice.
Remind me who Adler is.
Irene Adler. What is the? Yeah, she's.
I got it.
You remember who? Yeah, she's the one woman in the Sherlock Holmes series of any note. So anyone, and she was only in one story, A Scandal in Bohemia.
Oh, okay. Whoa. In the TV show, is she reinterpreted as when she met Sherlock, she told her, her lackey that she was going to wear her armor when she met him and she was naked?
She's a dominatrix in the...
Got it.
The reason I wasn't fond of her in the TV show is she wasn't nearly as kind of smart as she was in the, and she wasn't like Sherlock Holmes smart, sort of in that way, but she was a very smart woman who outsmarted Sherlock Holmes and got, not that she was a criminal either, and got away. She actually got away from the Prince of Bohemia, not from Sherlock Holmes, technically.
In high school at the library, they had a complete collection of the Sherlock and Conan Doyle Sherlocks. And I spent a summer getting that book about 2 weeks every month and just worked my way through it. I'd already read like Count of the Baskervilles and some of the, the basic ones to begin with. And it just amazes me how people can pick these characters out and remember them because they didn't make an impact on me.
Right.
To me, it was Sherlock and it was Watson. Everybody else was just there.
Like I said, she's the only woman of note in most of the, I mean, there's plenty of women in the Sherlock Holmes stories, but she was the one who outsmarted them. As they say in the story, who Sherlock Holmes refers to as the woman. But I felt like I said, I wasn't fond of her in the Sherlock show because they kind of made her, first of all, they made her more of a villain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They made her kind of a collector of secrets. What was that?
There's also they don't know how to portray intelligent women on TV anymore.
Yeah.
So the idea is that Sherlock Holmes is such a smart guy, but then you just show him a little bit of tits, and he becomes I'm a man and I want to have sex.
Yeah, yeah. He also said he was a functioning sociopath or it's like whatever in that show.
Which he's not, right?
Because I have no idea.
Moron. Come on, man.
It was the cocaine.
Yeah. Now, to me, you had the other two characters that stood out for me in the Sherlock books was, of course, Mycroft and Moriarty because they were reoccurring. Right. All these other characters, like I said, it just amazes me. I love when people get into, some kind of world like this, like the Sherlock Holmes world there, and they can just pick it apart and stuff. I love that.
Someone gave me a couple volumes of the annotated Sherlock Holmes, and they're crazy.
Are they?
Yeah,
people figured out how things fit together, where things were in real. It was just like the
Sherlock Holmes fans are hardcore, man.
Oh yeah, they were the original continuity geeks.
Yeah. The first people I saw keeping up with continuity outside of comics was with the Amber series in the 80s.
This Sherlock Holmes stuff was going on in the 20s. I think these books were written. That's the 1920s. I forgot we're in the 20s again.
That is so cool. What else you got there? And we'll get into the Joker stuff since I just realized I have a clickbait of a title.
The last thing I got was a surprise. The Last Ronin, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
I cannot wait to read that. That's the first book that's had me really excited in forever.
That cover's so shiny.
Fan. Let me put you up front. Let me put you up front with that.
I am not a Turtles fan, so this was, a surprise that I would buy this.
Yeah.
It's a $9 book. It's square bound and it's bigger. It's bigger than a normal comic. So,
well, it's a $9 book, but the hype says there was 130,000 more orders than what they had. So for a while, it was a $50 book before it even came out. So congratulations.
There's a second printing of it already ordered like a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed it. I have to say I liked it. I won't spoil anything for you, Tim, but not being a Turtles fan, I have to say it was a good comic.
Oh,
Except for as an old production guy, it really annoyed me. It being square bound and this little thin square bound, a couple of the times balloons and artwork got eaten up by the spine. And I'm just like, oh, come on, guys.
Oh, well.
Get your production right.
Yeah.
It's an expensive book. Why am I here? Let's try to read those balloons right there. Let me
Hold on, I'm going to pull you back up there.
Look at those balloons going into the spine.
I always wondered when I was a kid if there was
a term for that.
I always wondered if there was a term for that when I was a kid. Now, one of the reasons I'm excited about that is My Turtles, it's the first, 50, 60 issues of the original series. It was layered and, I know they weren't on the book all the way through, but I like those, Cerebus was popping up. I like those early stories, and this comes out of an idea that they had bounced around back in 87. And it's just something about that era is just magic for me when it comes to turtles. Everything else after that, it's give or take with me, you know.
And the general idea is there's one turtle left alive, and he's coming back into the city for revenge.
Yeah, 30 years before they started doing Old Man Logan and you know, and all that stuff. Before it was
I hope they don't like surprise us and have some of the other turtles come back alive. Yeah. There's some. Oh, here's the other thing that annoyed me. Here's this nice double page. Well, it's almost a double page spread. But in here, like way in here in the spine, there's a face that we can't even see because it gets eaten up by the spine. It's like that's the guy talking, and we can't even see his face because it's eaten up by the spine.
So that used to drive me nuts. I don't know, 80s, 90s. That used to drive me nuts. I always wonder if there was a term for that. You know,
that's when the well, what it is when the production on comic books, you have what's called the copy safe area. And that's where all the balloons are supposed to go. They're supposed to stay inside the copy safe area. That way, that never happens.
Right.
But some people just don't pay attention to that. The artist doesn't pay attention to that and puts the face way over in the spine so that they put the balloons further. That's supposed to be part of your craft of drawing a comic and lettering a comic, is you know where the copy safe area is. And you see, before comics were full bleed, that was never a problem, because everything stayed in the center. And some people just aren't professional enough to know that. And it's really annoying when you read it and you're like, So every time I see that, I shake my
Well, here's a production related question. I was just wondering about that. In the modern age, with the art being digital, if the production people realized it was going to bleed out, outside of the panel in the center of the book, could they not resize the original art digitally?
You can't really resize pages.
Okay.
Because then you resize everything. That you might be able to. First of all, you don't really want to mess with an artist's art by cutting it and moving it around.
Right. But I was working under the assumption that they'd let the artist know, hey, you're running into a problem. Is it okay to do this?
But I have to say, most production artists aren't really good at their job either.
Okay.
That's like, let me show you. This is one of my favorite stories that Walt told me. Walter. Which one is it?
Oh, what is this? I've got all new options here. I've got comments, banners, brand, private chat, and settings. Now I can. Oh, go ahead, man.
This is RoboCop versus Terminator, the artist edition. Frank Miller and Walter Simonson. And the reason it's so wide compared to a normal comics page, and as you can see, most of the pages, there's a lot of white space over on the sides of it. See all this white space over on the side? That's because when Walter was drawing this, Dark Horse didn't have paper made up for bleed side. This is the beginning of full bleed comics in the early 90s. And like a Dark Horse didn't have the paper. So what Walter did was he drew extra bleed to the edges, as you can see here, thinking it would be cut off. That's what he was like, well, I'll give them extra to cut off because I don't know where to stop.
Right.
Because there was no full bleed paper yet so he said, the production guy, whoever it was doing it, just ended up shrinking all the pages down so they can fit in. So in the original, you'll see pages were shrunk down by the production guy because he was trying to fit all the extra bleed stuff that Walter put in. He was trying to fit into the printed page. So that's why, and when they did this edition, they wanted to print all that extra stuff, like all this stuff over on this edge. Whoops, this edge over here. Let me get it in. All this stuff over here should be trimmed right off of the comic book page. But they didn't trim it off. They shrunk the pages. So that's why this had to be printed extra wide, was because Walter drew it extra wide so they would have stuff to cut off, and they never cut it off.
Yeah. I messaged you before about I've got that series. I bought the series when it came out, the miniseries, and it just keeps disappearing. Even where I thought somebody stole it off me twice. I found it a couple months ago, and I flipped through it when I found it. And I think I sent you a picture, or I messaged you saying I found it. My CD kicked in, and I remember looking at it thinking, did they resize that? But it was like just a passing glance. I didn't really stick with the thought.
I've never seen the original. Walter told me that story one day. I was like, oh, look at that.
Speculators put up all the local turtle books. In the 1990, Mike Zuley drew Soul's Winter. It ran for 3 issues. It's one of the darkest and strangest turtle stories I've ever read. I think I have an issue of that. Mike Zuley is somebody who I found thanks to Sandman, like number 12 or something.
Oh.
Or somewhere around there. Yeah.
Have you read Puma Blues?
Yeah, Puma Blues. And actually, I think I found Puma Blues through Cerebus. I like how this is all timed together today. Everything we talked about in the first 30 minutes is coming together.
I was a big Puma Blues fan back in the big 80s. Really, matter of fact, they collected it all, and it's available in a collection from like Scholastic or someone. You can get
Puma Stray Bullets. For some reason, I put those together, though. Stray Bullets and Puma Blues. I don't know why. For some reason,
were different eras.
In my mind together. Yeah. You got any more books?
I only got those 4 this week.
Well, I just realized what happened is Jared's going to be leaving us early tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not because he's all bougie, but he has a PTA meeting. And I said we were going to start early, so I got my butt home. I put I did some things to hurry up, and we're going to start early tonight, which is why we started early. We should have said this at the top of the show. But I just realized I got a super clickbaity title to this because I was just in a hurry to do something. I didn't have time to think of some comic book title that nobody knows what it is. Listen, 75. That's where nobody's picked up where I get these titles sometimes. But Paolo and I have read the 3 Jokers. Scott, have you read all 3 issues of the 3 Jokers? Batman 3 Jokers?
I have not read any of issues of the 3 Jokers.
Okay, and Jared hasn't either. But we talked about this before the show, and I wanted to make sure that I read it right. While I was sick this week and all this stuff and staying home, I had the books ordered. And I decided I want to read it because the first one I thought was a complete mess. I thought this is ridiculous. So I read 2 and 3. Structurally, they get better as they go along. I mean, I'll say it's structured content-wise. But you get to the 3rd issue. Now, what has set off, this is a spoiler for anybody who hasn't read 3 Jokers, but what happens is what was it, 4 years ago, Paolo, in a Justice League book, like issue 52 or something of Jeff Johns' Dark Side War book or something? Tell them what happens, Paolo. What set this off, man?
So, Batman takes control of the Mobius chair. And now that he has access to all the information of the universe, he asks the Mobius chair who the Joker is, because apparently he didn't know. That was always the mystery for the Batman and for all of us, the fans. Who is the Joker? I never knew
that was a mystery. I never knew that mattered. I was like, wasn't the Joker some criminal who fell into a vat of acid?
This is why I'm wanting to get to this, Jared, before you go, because when we talked about it, you went exactly where it just writes itself. So all of a sudden, what set off the mystery of the 3 Jokers was the Mobius chair. Batman got in the chair to find out who the Joker finally was. You get to issue 3 of the 3 Jokers, and stupid things happen. I'm just going to go ahead and say it. And all of a sudden, I think it was Alfred says something to him like, well, maybe you can still find out who he is now that there's one left. Batman looks at him and goes, "You're forgetting, Alfred. I'm Batman, and some things they say about me are true." "What are you talking about, Batman?" He's like, "I've known who the Joker was a week after I met him. The first time we met him. So why in the hell would he get in the Mobius chair to ask who the Joker was if he's known all these years and kept it a secret?" You know, it's a huge plot hole.
He wanted to see if the Mobius chair knew. He was testing the Mobius chair's knowledge.
The problem here is that we'd be inclined to go along with it because currently nobody cares about continuity at the big companies. So if this hadn't been written by the same person, we would say, lazy writer, lazy editor, they don't read each other's books, they come up with whatever they want.
Look,
I think I got it.
Considering that Jeff, this is the Rebirth continuity, and that Jeff Johns wanted the Three Jokers to continue being a part of whatever they were setting up with the Watchmen Rebirth and the Watchmen spin-off. What was it called? Now I forget.
Doomsday Clock.
Doomsday Clock. You think that Jeff Johns would want to keep his story straight, and that's actually the biggest problem here.
Yeah.
Now here's what it is. I just figured it out. This is how it goes. Let's just say you're walking through life, and you meet somebody who says, "I have psychic powers. I know everything about you. Ask me a question to test me." You're going to ask them, "What was the name of my best friend in the 3rd grade?" And if he knows that, you're going to go, you do have powers. That's what Batman was doing with the Mobius chair. He was saying, who is the joke? He was asking the Mobius chair a question he already knew the answer to.
You know what? Batman does have a grudge against the New Gods. You know what I mean? He punched Orion right in the mush in Cosmic Odyssey. He shot Darkseid with a bullet back in Final Crisis, and now he's like, "I want to test your Mobius chair because I'm smarter."
And Batman only has science fiction plots when he's in other books, like in Justice League. When it's a Batman book, there are no science fiction plots. It's a crime book.
Right.
He kills Darkseid and gets the whole big head. You know,
it was the Earth 3 Batman.
Didn't Darkseid send him back in time?
Yeah,
that once.
Yeah, the Omega Beam. Yeah, they shot each other at the same time or something. But Batman had enough time to say "gotcha," and then he's next thing you know, man, he's like shirtless in a cave painting a bat symbol for God knows what reason.
And somewhere out there's a T-shirt that says "Darkseid shot first."
Also, he probably thought, cavemen are a superstitious and cowardly lot.
I mean, we just sat here and goofed around and wrote a better story than what we had with the Three Jokers. And what's bad is you can start enjoying the Three Jokers if you don't think about that huge plot hole. And then it's like you tell the plot hole and you're just sort of like, motherfucker. You know? Oh, God. But yeah, it just blew my mind, this big event. There's been people who waited 4 years. I gave up after a year and a half. When I read about the 4th issue of Doomsday Clock, I'm like, I'm not excited. You know.
Did you ever read all of Doomsday Clock?
Yeah.
Okay. I was just curious.
It was a good effort, and I think everybody put a lot of heart in it.
It is so well crafted, but pointless. And it's like, you know what? If they put this much effort into something that wasn't so derivative, it could have been good.
Three Jokers has the same problem. Oh my God, Fairbach, who's the artist? Whoever the artist is on Three Jokers, excellent job, man. I mean, that guy went for it. He did 9 panel pages in some places, and he was trying to kind of channel Killing Joke here and there. And that's what I mean. The art is redeeming. I really would like to see somebody go back, and I think you could redo the dialogue. I'm not joking. You could probably redo the dialogue, maybe rearrange some of the panels or something. So the artist, I feel bad for the artist, is big shot, and it's a book that doesn't matter. It's
so derivative that it's like, like I said, I think I read the first 2 issues of Doomsday Clock. And I was really impressed by the talent, by the sheer effort they put into it. By that was even the writing, as pointless as it was talented writing. He really was trying to integrate the Watchmen characters into the DC universe.
I remember,
concerned.
It was Gary Frank, and I remember one of our shows where you guys were telling. I followed Gary Frank. I've watched Gary Frank forever and stuff, and you guys told me he was on the Hulk, and my brain was having a short circuit. That following, a couple days later, I got my Hulk box down, and I bought those when they came out. His artwork has improved so much.
Yeah,
I couldn't even comprehend it was the same artist.
Here's the thing: Gary Frank, like many of the British artists at the time, started as an Alan Davis clone.
Yeah,
Alan Davis is a very expressive artist, and Gary Frank evolved in the opposite direction. So I think he's a good illustrator, but his art is usually boring to follow. Yeah. He has good panels, but terrible pages.
Oh,
he did his best job on that Doomsday Clock, though. I think. Yeah. I think that was his best work. The 2 issues that I read.
But the artwork was solid. Even the cross hatching on throwaway panels was amazing. I mean,
he was channeling a lot of Dave Gibbons, of course.
Yeah. By design. I mean, that's what he was trying to do,
yeah.
And he succeeded. I think, without just drawing like Dave Gibbons.
I think that, but like if they put that much time into effort on something more consequential, I know they probably thought it was consequential. Doomsday Clock. They probably thought, wow, this is going to be a big thing. This is going to be, it's Watchmen tying into the DC. I can see how they thought it was going to be consequential and put in their best effort, and they did. But to me, it was like completely inconsequential.
There's no spark.
There were also office politics involved. That's why it got late, and then they decided to go in a different direction with the continuity and all of this. So Jeff Johns had to change plots between issue 6 and 7 or 7 or 8 because you notice that the story is not going where it's supposed to go.
I knew that happened, but I didn't know where. Yeah, I didn't know how much had to get changed. I knew there was certain things going on like that, but
the Legion plot definitely had to be changed because Bendis came on board, and I think that was being set up because they were trying to, for a couple of years, to get Hickman to come to DC and do Legion. But then there's no Hickman, and then Bendis has a stupid idea. I mean, Bendis should understand that he's very good at crafting street level plots and working from there.
I wish they had put all that time and effort into a standalone book. That would have been good.
Anything. Yeah, I mean, all that, it's just wasted talent. I mean, the art. Yeah. It's just, like I said, I'm so glad we're talking about the artist here. Let me get Gore Vidal's comments in here. So I read 3 Jokers without thinking about the events in Justice League. He therefore enjoyed the story. It was great. He liked it. It made Jason appealing, a character I don't like. That's what I'm saying with issue 2 and then the issue 3, the structure, the craft got better with it. The first issue was just a mess, man.
Yeah, and he's right about not thinking about the events in Justice League, because if you disregard Johnson's Justice League run, the 3 Jokers kind of looks like it was a book designed to become a perennial, so you're not supposed to be that hung up on continuity. If it's a follow-up to something, it's definitely as a follow-up to the Killing Joke.
See, that's a problem. That could be like a personal problem, because I eventually see a big picture amongst things. Like, I can't do that. I remember what began a story. I just remember stuff like that.
Yeah, if it wasn't for the fact that the writing today is so decompressed that it takes you 2 years to come up with what's actually supposed to be 4 issues, people wouldn't remember or wouldn't be so hung up on what Johns did 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah. The scene between Barbara and Jason he particularly liked. He knew nothing about Red Hood. The final meeting reminded of the alternate ending to Cinema Parade. I know what he's talking about here. Basically, Jason made a move on Barbara, and Barbara had reasons why. Well, Barbara made a move on Jason. She kissed him, and they actually did this. Jeff Johns did this really good thing. Last time I saw somebody do something this good was Judd Winnick or Jeff Johns in a Teen Titans episode. But anyway, you totally got that Jason didn't have anybody. He was the one that was forgotten about. When Jeff Johns wrote him into the Teen Titans, when Judd Winnick was doing the Red Hood story, he was walking through the Teen Titans compound and he saw all the statues for the fallen Titans that had died. And he looked around and he's like, "Where's mine? I was a Titan." And that's when I was like, oh, Jeff Johns tapped into that too again. Barbara just kind of threw a kiss at him and then said it was a one-time deal, forget about it. So at the end of it, Jason ends up putting a letter on her door saying that I will never speak of this again, but I can change if you'll just do it with me and all this stuff. And the damn thing falls. And this is the only apartment building I know where a janitor is coming by, sweeping it up and didn't pick the letter up as he was sweeping. So she never knows there's going to be a letter. So I get what you're saying there.
What comic I miss?
What?
Hey guys, I was funny. I was just watching one of our regular commenters who's not here right now, Pope Cerebus. The first put out a haul video today. I had it on a little while ago, and it made me. It's funny. I'm nostalgic for comics I don't buy. Lazarus. The comic Lazarus by Michael Lark and Greg Rucka.
I've seen the covers. I've never picked up an issue.
I bought it for years. I like it. It's a good comic, but I think it was last year they switched formats. They relaunched it, and once again decided to put it in that square-bound format, like the Turtles. That I'm not a fan of the square-bound format.
Right.
And put it out every, 4 months. They put out an issue, like an oversized issue that also has their source book stuff in it. And I don't know if you've ever seen the Lazarus source books, but they're like, holy cow, who wants to read this text about the different families? And it's like, I love the comic, but I stopped buying it because I hate the format. And I said, one day I'll pick up the trade of it, which I don't even know if the trade's out yet, since issue 5 of the new format's only out. But I saw it on Pope Cerebus's haul, and I actually got nostalgic. I was like, Lazarus. I wish I could read that one.
I've had stuff that I wanted to read, but I didn't want to buy it. I'm like, I wish I knew people who I could just borrow this for a little bit and read it, And Lazarus was probably one of those books. I'm willing to sit down and read it, but I don't want to buy it.
It's a good series,
man.
Yeah, there are some series, and there's that just Lazarus Going Quarterly was a smeek. It's one of my favorite. Yeah, I don't know why it did. I just hate. I mean, it lost me as a reader just because of the format. If it was saddle stitched instead of square bound, I would still be buying it.
What is Captain Leatherwing? Why do I feel like that rings a bell, but I don't know why?
I don't know that one.
I don't know. You got us, man. He got us.
And another book that I miss, that being that I'm indie collector, I rarely stop buying books because I'm buying it because of the creators. And on indie books, the creators don't change like they do on, Marvel and DC books. So it's rare that I stopped picking up Lazarus. And the other book that I loved and I stopped picking up because they just did something plot wise that made me not care anymore was the name flew right out of my head. The one that got turned into a TV show.
Nightman.
The name just flew right out of my head just before I said it. I can't even think of.
It's a Howlermouth. Yeah, again, it's a Howlermouth stream. Welcome to my world.
Deadly Class. There we go.
Huh?
Deadly Class. That was it.
There you go.
I loved Deadly Class. The art in Deadly Class is great. It was one of my favorite comics. But they did something plot-wise around issue 25 that just made me go, They brought back, because one of the things that's good about indie comics is when they kill somebody off, they're dead. It's not like a superhero comic where death means nothing. Well, they did they brought somebody back, and it was like, what? Oh, yeah, I ran him through with a sword, but I gave him a double secret formula that kept him alive. And I was like, what?
I don't know if we have a lag or something here, because I'm noticing when I watch live shows and stuff, I notice, judging by the comments versus there's a lag. But I wonder if Gore Vidal read your mind.
He probably heard me talk about it before. Because like I said, I bought it for years.
So I know the Maladorian came out, and I'm waiting for Mandalorian came out.
Wait a minute, hold on. Say it again like you said it the first time.
I don't know what I said, man.
Maladorian, he said.
Maladorian. That's actually kind of an interesting name just by itself.
I'm going to write it down. I still have the sinus infection.
He's switching letters around.
Yeah, I still have the sinus infection, but I love the first season. But I'm just going to wait for them all to be out. Pay my $6 for Disney that month, and then we'll watch them. So he watched the Maladorian. I'll probably said it again there. Is it safe to say that Timothy Oliphant would be Hallermouse in a movie about Cavern or Chaos? I don't know who that is.
Timothy Oliphant. Yeah, he was the sheriff in Justified.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's been in other stuff too, but
that's the guy. That's the guy I thought could have been Preacher. Nice.
Right.
Yeah, he was in Deadwood. Yeah.
He's in this season of Fargo too.
I'm gonna take that as a compliment. I'll look him up after this. Yeah, nice. Yeah. What we got here? Leathering is. Oh, I knew there was a reason that was ringing a bell. Leatherwing is the pirate Batman universe. It was originally an annual before being in the else. I can't talk now.
God, I have that issue.
That's awesome. Well, okay. What we got here? Man, they're all over this now. Oh, it's the same people. Okay. Also, the way nice. Good luck with that, brother. Script writing. Go for it. All right. We got to get that guy an artist. So he's going to be famous. And we'll be like, we discovered him. You know?
Yeah, but it's funny because I actually ended up selling my Deadly Class comics only because I could. Because it was right before it was going to be a TV show.
I'm actually looking at Deadly Class now. Yeah.
The art in it is fantastic. It's got one of the best chase scenes I've ever seen around issue 5 or 6 in a comic. And usually chase scenes in comics aren't very good. But what it was Deadly Class was a book that was all about mistakes and the consequences of the mistakes.
Okay.
And then they just removed that.
The show is on Sci-Fi, and none of my streaming services give me this show. I'll check Hulu for it. I'll check it out.
Yeah, I never bothered with the show. It only lasted a season.
Okay.
But the first maybe 20 issues of the comic are really, really good.
When did this come out? Written by Rick Remender, illustrated by Wes Craig.
Wes Craig does such a job on it.
I thought he was going to say Wes Craven. I was like, what?
Lee Lowridge, I think, is on the colors, if I remember correctly. Also does a nice job.
Hold on. It actually says who did the colors here. Let me go back here. Colored by Lee Luffridge and Jordan Boyd.
Okay.
Lettered by Russ Wooten.
Right. Russ, formerly of Comicraft.
Yeah, it was 44 issues, and it's all over the place with hard covers and soft covers. It's got a whole list here. Nice.
I might re-get it someday. But I sent my issues to Germany.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I actually got a decent price for them, which is, probably the same I paid for it. It's like if you buy an indie book and can sell it for cover price, like you've made money. That never happens.
Yeah, it depends on the book.
Well, on Image, whatever this website is, imagecomics.com, you can read the first issue. And I didn't know it takes place, it starts out in 1987, so I'll check that out. Paper Girls burned me, man. Paper Girls burned me. I hope this doesn't burn me.
Oh, no, this is much better than Paper. Like I said, for a while, for about 2 years, this was my favorite comic.
It asks if I'm 18. Is anything we need to know about this?
Are you?
Are you over 18? And then underneath it says, no, take me back to Deadly Class, like some kids.
Church is probably one of my favorite books of all time. The show, last I knew, was still on Hulu. The show the first 2 arcs done. The series is currently on hiatus. Latest stuff has been really good. The Deadly Class was never bad. I just, like I said, the one plot twist that just wrecked it for me. After I still read it for like a year after that, and then it went on hiatus, and I went, you know what? I'm just not picking it up when it comes back from hiatus. It's like I can't stand to be disappointed by Deadly Class anymore. Not that it was bad.
It's got that pastel coloring like they had on Paper Girls and stuff that just runs all over me.
I don't know. I don't know if it's really pastel. I don't remember it being pastel in Deadly Class.
Okay, it's just the first page. So okay. I'm going to read this tonight, Jared. Thank you.
Yeah.
So
the first issue really reminded me of Steranko. That's where I bought it too.
Okay.
He was doing some Steranko riffs in it.
Nice. Now I kind of not to swing back here. I mean, what you're talking about, but when I get paid next month, the next paycheck, I'm finally going to look up some Tales of Bean World and Hate. So so when it comes to getting Peter Bag's Hate that we've talked about on here like 5 times or something before, I'm wanting to make sure I get the storyline of the dude that ends up, did he take himself out or not?
They're putting out Hate in a 3-volume collection. Did I mention that last week?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Not that I recall.
Oh yeah, in November it's coming out, but wait on it because it's coming out at $130.
And he just retitled it. I hate the price.
Yes, but like I said, I'm going to get that collection eventually because it's full size and it's like the Hate hardcover that's out. The Hate big collected edition that's out is smaller than comic size.
Yeah.
So.
Well, you've got some Deadly Class fans here. He's Warren First is saying it's on Hulu, I think. Yeah, last he knew. Yeah. The series is currently on a hiatus, but it's still been good with the last stuff they put out. And he goes on and on about it in the comments here.
Yeah, like I wish I was still buying it, but it just disappointed me at one point, and everything I read after that kind of all their life and death consequences that the book was about suddenly were no longer had life and death consequences.
Gotcha,
so it was kind of to me like, it's just like reading a Marvel comic now.
I kind of had that experience with the TV show Penny Dreadful. Once I found out how it was going to end, there was like a lag or something in production, and they were going to come back. And once it got leaked on how it was going to end, I was just so pissed off. I had no interest in it anymid.
Is that how it actually ended?
They basically
did the rumor match reality?
I assume so, because I never finished.
So you don't even know that could have been a complete red herring.
Well, if it had been, everybody else would have said something about it. So it probably.
I have no idea. I have no idea how many people read the rumor.
Something happened where the story did not end the way they originally wanted it to, and they had to end it early and compress it because of, I think it was Showtime or whoever was putting it out wanted it. Here's the stopping point. Okay.
Right.
And there's just such a cop-out ending. I was like, no, that's it. I'm done. Yeah.
So that's why I would never read that. I'm one of those people who I don't want to read anything about what's coming up in any show or comic I'm watching.
Right.
So it's like I know some people love to do that. I hate. I knew someone.
Yeah.
I knew someone. This is the craziest thing ever. He would get a new comic, and the first thing he'd do was turn to the last page and see what happened on the last page. And I'd be like, "What?"
Yeah. I used to work with a guy who actually liked to spoil things on people on purpose.
Yeah, those people are just nuts.
Yeah,
I did not order Terry Moore's upcoming graphic novel because of the price. I figured I'll wait for the soft cover. Because I was gonna that Monday when it was available, I went to look at it. I think it was like $40 with shipping for the hardcover or something. I went, you know what? I can wait for the soft cover to come to my comic shop.
And Terry Moore is one of those people that I'll push his books on people. Just trying to get him. Rachel Rising is one that I try to get people to kind of read here and there. I've had about 2 or 3 people actually. I've sat there and let them tell me about Terry Moore because they're just so jazzed about his stuff. Like I'll just, I'm like digging their energy and their excitement about him. It seems like Terry Moore is one of those guys. Once he grabs you, you're God.
Yeah.
So.
But also, what always has annoyed me, and this isn't Terry Moore, this is comics in general. Once again, it's the Brooklyn Bridge effect. You're either the sucker buying the comics or the asshole waiting for the trades. I usually buy Terry Moore comics.
Yeah.
At $4 a pop, which adds up over. You buy a 20-issue series, and that's $80. And then he puts out a hardcover omnibus for like $75, and I'm like, the hardcover omnibus is cheaper than the series I just bought. So then I saw this, the hardcover is coming out first, and it's real expensive. I was like, I'll wait for because he said there'll also be a cheaper trade paperback available through your local comic store. And I'm like, you know what? I'll wait for the cheaper trade paperback because I always pay too much for Terry Moore stuff. I don't have to pay too much this time.
I'm the guy that will, the stickers are stuck on there. I keep forgetting to go get them stuff, but I'm the guy that finds them for cheap. $8. I'm that guy. I'm the guy that
you're the asshole. I'm the sucker. Yeah. You're the asshole. That's what it is.
The asshole are the people that use those damn stickers that won't peel off nicely.
Yeah.
Hold on.
It's a small price to pay. And I've got 2 or 3 of these signed by Terry Moore. I'm just glad he never flipped them over. Yeah.
This will get your stickers off right here. Bestine solvent and rubber cement thinner.
Okay.
I've got a video up on how to remove tape from your comics. This will do it.
I'll remember that. I've got something underneath the sink that I use, a hot gun. The wife has a hot gun that just blows hot air.
This is so much better. It's easy as pie. It won't damage the paper. Won't leave any stains. It'll take $224. Oof.
Yeah.
That's expensive for him.
Yeah. Was it $374? Oof.
Yeah. I got that one off. Yeah, and these are brand new. I mean, I'm that guy.
He's the guy that haggles at those prices.
I saw a guy do that at my local comic shop. They had like trades on sale for that price, like $2-3 a trade. The guy brings up about 5 or 6 of them and goes, could you do me a deal on them? And the guy working the store just is like, do you a deal? They're $3 a trade. And he goes, it's just checking. And then he left, and the guy working the store was like, I hate that guy. He is always looking for a deal, even when he's getting a deal.
That's
yeah, the shipping was expensive.
You've seen me. Scott's seen me in motion here and there. Yeah, he's seen it in real life a few places.
My favorite thing about going comic shopping with Tim is he'll make these piles. He'll pull books out of a short box, long box, or whatever the dealer has. And he'll make these giant piles that are almost, half the size of the number of books that were originally in the box. I'm like, Tim, why don't you just pull out the ones you actually want and leave the other ones in place?
I used to go to Comic Cons or something in the 90s with my friend Ed. Uh-huh. And he would only be interested on like the wall books that the guys have at the cons. And he'll see some old 60s wall book and he'll be like, oh yeah, can I see that one there? Oh, this is one of my favorites. And he'll take it out of the bag. He'll still looking through. Now I know Ed has $6 in his pocket. Right. And he's looking through a $100 book. And I'm just like, Ed.
Jared, it's $6.59, sir.
Yep, I gotta head out.
He's gonna do a movie called the Hudson Valley PTA instead of the Harper Valley PTA.
I was going to say, man, those PTA ladies who run those things might chastise you a little bit there. They'll come out of the dark behind you there.
You're still traumatized by that, aren't you, Tim?
I was worried. I thought he was going to get hurt.
All right, so you guys have a good week. I got to leave early this week, so have fun. And you can keep that old what was it that our off-air tradition you used to have when as soon as someone leaves, you go, now that asshole's gone.
I forgot about that. I can't remember what I used to do to counter that before I got off. I know it didn't work. This asshole's out of here.
All right. Well, you guys have a good week, and we'll catch you later.
Bye. All right, Gore. Those books I think were from a flea market in Tennessee, actually. So let's see what we got. Clerks, yeah. Man, this is on top of it. Stray Bullets, one of my favorite series from the last 20 years.
I never have read that. I've always heard good things about it.
I love it. Volume 1, David Lapham.
Lapham.
It was really good stuff, but the book started out set in the 70s. There was a scene of a little kid, running out of a theater after he saw Star Wars. So it was definitely like, it came out in the 90s. I was probably about 23 or 24. So it was like right in my age group, but it's a great crime comic with some stuff going on there. It crisscrosses and dovetails a little bit. Matthew Rasco, we got to get him an artist for this tribute to the Killer Tapeworms and Killer Ice Cream Men, and a tribute to Cycle of the Werewolf. All right. Well, we got a lot going on there. Oh, man. Well, I'm trying to dig through the boxes and stuff, and apparently I hit a time where I would take out old comic book advertisements, and I would take them to the library where they would laminate them here. Right. And I love when I find these. They gotten scattered throughout the boxes and stuff. But here's some old advertisement for Mobius.
Yep.
And one of my favorite books, Martial Law, which I'm probably going to find a place to hang this up.
If anybody is looking for those epic Marvel versions of the Mobius books, if you can find them at a decent price, go ahead and pounce on them because they're hard to find now, and they're getting extremely expensive.
The Mobius story, at least here in the States, that seems to be getting like a little resurgence that's been going on the last couple months, is the Silver Surfer story he did with Stan Lee at Epic Comics in the 80s.
Yeah, that one's been reprinted a few times.
Yeah, it's I'm seeing video after video of people bringing it up. These people are doing videos of like their best top 10 standalone stories, and it's just popping up under all kinds of different topics. And I don't watch YouTube that much. After 10 years of watching probably 1,200 haul videos a year, I kind of just don't have it in me as much. But I have been seeing that come up. And then in the mail, this finally came.
Nice.
The Herculoids. I think we have the age group here. People who were probably saw it was on TV the first time, and then when they were like rerunning them on Cartoon Network for years and stuff. And then there's another. The next two I want to get is Space Ghost and Dino Boy. I had that back in 2010.
The Space Ghost compilation is now on Blu-ray as well.
Nice. I actually used to have these, and I've still got a few. I kept a few of them, seasons of Flintstones and all these and stuff. But these were actually at Big Lots in 2009 for $3 a piece. It blew my mind. Ended up selling.
So would Herculoids, would that be a Dorno movie?
That would be very cool. Okay. But love the Herculoids. I probably want to get Space Ghost, and then the All-Star show from like 1980, where you had like Space Ghost and Hercules, and then Space Ghost had like he had the nemesis that was the opposite of him, something like the Phantom. I can't remember what his name was. Right. The Phantom.
I know what you're talking about, but I don't remember the character.
But I put this in and watched a couple of episodes, man, and they've done really good restoring this. It still has like some scratches in it, like an old Grindhouse movie. But I was watching through the Blu-ray, on a high def TV, and it looked fantastic.
Right.
And speaking of this, Scott got on me on this one here. VHS man has gone to Blu-ray.
Yes.
But I've had the Blu-ray, and I still watch VHS stuff. I can pull out some VHS tapes. But I finally, Blade Runner is the one that's made me a believer. After seeing this in the theater and on VHS, I still have a Laserdisc of it, and I watched it on Laserdisc like in the 90s or something, in the DVD. And then here it comes on Blu-ray, and it's like all of a sudden I'm seeing parts of the movie crystal clear that I've never seen before.
I've been telling you that for like 15 years.
Yeah. But Blade Runner is the one that did it. I saw the Terrell building. I'm like, oh my God, I saw it crystal clear.
I remember
Have you watched Blade Runner?
Matter of fact, it may still be in the plastic.
Yeah, $5. I'm that guy. $5.
I remember when I first got my first Blu-ray player, the first disc I got for it was Wall-E, the Pixar movie.
Yeah.
And it's a direct digital transfer. And I put this in, I got a new TV, and like, oh my God, what have I been missing? The video was like night and day different. Yeah.
Unreal. I'll get into the Future Quest in a minute. But some of the things I pulled out to finally read, either I haven't read one of these or two of these, or it's been so long I've kind of forgotten. But it's all these Richard Corbin, Dark Horse, Edgar Allan Poe adaptations that he's done. Mm-hmm. Conqueror Worm, Richard Corbin. Yeah, I got it right. There
are a couple of those that he's actually he redid them years later. It's the same story. It's just his second version of it.
I think these might be the second version. I'm not sure. But I was actually going to ask you about that because it seems like I've seen him do these before. These came out the last probably around 2010 to 2012. But it seems like I saw like this weird collection back in like the 1990s sitting on the back of a bookshelf somewhere that I didn't dig through. Hello, what are you into there, man? You haven't just got this look on your face.
Remember when I told you about comics getting memory hole, and one thing that I was looking up now was you guys said that the Mobius books are from Epic are kind of hard to get. I don't understand why they're not kept in print in the United States, because the Mobius science fiction books they go back to press a lot in Europe. If you want to build up a complete collection, it's easy. And but some things they just disappear. And I was rereading a few. Mind the Comics will know this. And this was a very famous black and white magazine that we had, and that I never got around to being a fan of. They were cheaply produced, and I kind of ignored them. But there are a couple of series here. They kind of disappeared, and one of them is. I was rereading this, and this is very interesting. How come I never heard about this? And it's a French. It's kind of strange. It doesn't look like it, but it's supposed to be science fantasy. It's called Ian Kaladin. Let me see if I can show some art of it. And it kind of looks more Italian than French.
I'll go ahead and tell you the when you hold still, it comes through, and then it kind of tracks when you move it. That's awesome. Okay.
Yeah, because this doesn't look like typical French material, and the writer's Belgian. Jean-Louis Vernal, and the artist is called Ferry. At first, I thought it might be Pasquale Ferry, but he was a teenager when this was first published. Because Pasquale Ferry was already well known in Spain about 10 or 15 years before anyone in the United States ever heard of him. When he did Heroes for a Hire, but this kind of disappeared. I've never. This is a short. This is a 6-page short story. And it kind of disappeared.
Superman. I think Pascal Ferry ended up doing some Superman, and that's where I really noticed him, I think.
And then there's something else here, and this is amazing because at first I thought this was something Italian because the artist signs Zanetto. Let me see. Wait, where's the signature? Over here. Okay, Zanetto. And I thought, mate, there were a few Italian magazines that I wasn't very familiar with. Scorpio, the Eternauta, and Sergeant Kirk. And I thought, maybe this is from it, because the Italians, those Italian magazines, that material completely disappeared. Now that everything in Italy is Bonelli, it's all Dylan Dog and similar stuff, and this stuff kind of disappeared. Turns out it's even more of a shame that this disappeared because it's not Italian at all. I went looking for it, and the guy sounds with an Italian name, but it's Portuguese. It's called, and this is a science fiction story, and nobody is even paying attention. Nobody even knows that this exists anymore.
Well, I'll tell you what. There's a lot of videos on how to bound books and bound comics. I think you should get them all and bound it yourself.
Yeah, I don't even know. I mean, I picked up a few of these a couple of years ago. They were €1 each. I don't usually go look for them because I noticed one of them at a Kazar story, and it wasn't normal for Marvel and DC stories to be published in this magazine. But for a while, they got the rights to a couple of things. They published Kazar, Deathlock, Warlord, and Daniel O'Neill and Neil Adams's Green Lantern, Green Arrow.
Oh, man.
I don't know why. Yeah,
man.
But the majority of stuff, it was either comic strips or French material. But there were these unknown Portuguese artists, and they were producing stuff that didn't look like anything else. And they disappeared. It's a real shame. I kind of miss out because I got a reputation for wanting to be a historian, and I don't even know the things that we had in my country. And I just all of a sudden pick up something not knowing what's in it, and how come I never heard about this? And how come nobody's talking about this? We're not preserving this piece of culture, and we were always complaining, oh, we don't have anything, we never had anything, we import everything.
Well, in the early days of comic book YouTube here, we had 4 or 5 British guys, someone from Belgium, and Laros is back. I think she was from Belgium and moved to England or something. Someone from France. And I did this thing where I asked them all about new videos on comics that you guys have, because, I hear about, all these European artists and stuff. And they just sort of were like underwhelmed and want to talk about American comics. It kind of blew my mind.
It's kind of like you live someplace and there's a tourist attraction nearby, and none of the locals paying attention to it. But everybody else, I see that every day. I drive by, it doesn't even register in my brain anymore.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh my God.
I sort of made that journey backwards because looking at the stuff that I bought in the last 2 or 3 years, and I'm 40 now, and if I told 20-year-old me that I would not be buying any new Marvels, and that I would be buying independent Portuguese comics, I would laugh. It would be impossible. Or as the other guy says, it's inconceivable.
Yeah, and that's the thing. That's turned into like an elephant in a room, at least for me, and like that's why I don't do that many actual videos anymore and stuff. It's such a downer and stuff. It just blows my mind. I mean, I'm in the exact same situation that you said. Like if I had told myself even 10 years ago, that I wouldn't be buying this, so few books, if we'll put it that way. It just blows my mind. And you read the news, the comic book news, or you actually do give it a chance to get a few books, and you're just like, what the hell are they doing? Like what? It's kind of a pisser, and there's enough videos and people out there, breaking down and bitching about stuff.
I feel like I came to that conclusion about 10 to 15 years before most people did.
Yeah. No. There were things going on that actually felt like it was an evolution of comics and stories and things they were doing. And then, you kind of saw through that smoke screen pretty quick, when the Avengers are about to go down and have a fight and a Tyrannosaurus Rex comes out and they all run from it. In my day, the Avengers took on Godzilla, and it was Wasp and Yellow Jacket that took down Godzilla. A little Tyrannosaurus Rex isn't going to scare anybody. It was little things like that, like anybody ever read a book? What we got here? It's like Mexican comics, Phantomos. I know that name. Calamine Candaman. It's a shame how these books will never be known outside Mexico and Latin America. Yeah.
And there's probably guys in Mexico right now who grew up reading Marvel comics and didn't know they had their own stuff.
Right.
Well, their Spider-Man got to keep Gwen Stacy for like 20 years. So I love, we don't.
Yeah, and they had a Conan comic in the 1950s.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm finally getting around to finishing this series to read. I was reading it when it came out monthly. There's a Steve Rude cover, The Future Quest. This is where they got all the Hanna-Barbera characters out there.
Right.
Sienkiewicz on Space Ghost. I didn't know I needed this, But this was a 12-issue series that came out a few years ago, and I can't believe I haven't finished it, reading it, where they just kind of brought in everybody. Just everybody. Frankenstein Jr., Johnny Quest, Birdman. Herculoids. And had like their own little I don't know, crisis here on Infinite Earths, I guess. But they even got
everybody gets a cameo. Even Dino Boy appears for an issue or two,
and even the Impossibles. The Impossibles are in there.
Yeah, but, the Galaxy Trio appear in the sequel.
Oh man! But some of these covers, I mean, they just wouldn't do it justice here, man. But like this one's just beautiful. When people take this material serious,
right? I was so afraid that DC was going to mess that up, and they didn't.
Oh, well, not this. They didn't mess this up, but what they did with
Snagglepuss was enough to make them. Right?
Yeah. Well, what they did with Snagglepuss was enough to make them say, "Hey, guys, I think we're going to take this license back. Thanks for everything you did."
But I think I didn't read Snagglepuss, but the people who read it, they were very impressed. I think Sleepy Reader read it, and he constantly reviewed it, and I think he enjoyed it very much. I think he recommends it.
I would have enjoyed it if it wasn't Snagglepuss. It was such a different character. I wish they had just created a new character to make, Tennessee Williams. That's who he was. You know what I mean?
Speaking of that, I just read something the other day, and I'm not going to comment too much on this just because it's going to be a very interesting hot topic, probably, if it ever comes out. But they are working on a Tom Swift movie. And the Tom Swift that they mentioned in the movie, that's not the Tom Swift that we're used to. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah. See, the problem is I don't have a I think I know where you're going with this. I don't have a problem with different kind of stories and takes.
Right.
But you reach a point where
it's not that character.
Yeah. You're
using the name recognition, the brand recognition of the name.
Yeah.
It's like to generate interest, like just if you have a different take on a character, that's fine. That's not a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. If the first thing that I want to leave my mark on a character, the first thing that pops to your mind, I'm going to do a completely 180.
Right.
Well, then you don't have an idea. You just don't know what to do with the character. And there's a new. Yeah. Yeah, it happens. Yeah, I've noticed something with the British guys. They're all Marvel or DC fans, and there are British comics. I think I know. I think I know more about British comics than most British comics fans, and I'm not talking about 2000 AD. Right. There was this. The IPC had a bunch of characters that were pretty good, and I know a few of them were even published in this type of magazines over here. There was a Steel Claw, the Spider. A couple of them, they kind of have cameos in Marvel Man, Miracle Man stories. Right. And there was one that I loved. It was a comic strip character called Garth. It was a.
I've seen a few of those.
Yeah, it was very good, especially the way it was drawn in the 80s had nothing to do with the way it was drawn in the 60s. But those stories kept getting better and better. The art kept getting better and better. That thing appeared in daily newspapers, and it was almost softcore porn.
I'm trying to think of Howard Chaykin did some series, like a little mini series, and I was like, I'm not reading about. That's why I can't remember what it is.
American Flag.
No.
Black Kiss.
Might have been Black
Kiss. It's Black Kiss.
No.
No?
He came on a series, a DC series. He got a mini series at DC. I'm thinking it was Blackhawks, but that's why I don't really remember it, because it wasn't Blackhawks. It was softcore porn. Like you're saying. Like, I'm just sort of like, that makes no sense. But one of the reasons I didn't jump on to Grant Morrison, I know what's been going on with comics for the last 5 or 6 years. A whole lot of change. A lot of people don't know what they're doing. Characters that are unrecognizable and stuff. But Alan Moore, when he did Captain Britain and Alan in Swamp Thing, he actually made that change a part of the book. He symbolically destroyed Captain Britain atom by atom and regrew the body with Alan Davis, and that really influenced the X-Men, even though that was a Marvel UK book. Chris Claremont got a lot of his ideas for Excalibur and the X-Men around the early 200s from that. He went to Swamp Thing, did the whole thing with Swamp Thing, reinterpreting the character, but he still made it part of the story. So when Grant Morrison came along and I found out he's British and they handed him Animal Man, I didn't really jump on the Grant Morrison stuff because I was like, he's going to pull an Alan Moore. Like he's going to try to just reinvent this whole character and stuff. But they handled it better back then. So even way back then in high school, I was really shying away from that stuff. If you had told me 35 years later, that would be like the standard, what you do in comics now. And Tom Swift and all these other guys, I would have just been like, are you kidding me? They just had some comic come out. I don't know if it was Justice League or what, but they posted the picture on Bleeding Cool or something, the page, and Wonder Woman was lecturing someone, and this someone was supposed to have been the reader. And it was lecturing them saying things like comics change and they have to change to survive and evolve. And I'm just sitting here reading this, like, first of all, they're lecturing adults again. And the second thing I thought was, well, part of evolution is that you increase the gene pool, and what you're doing now is incestuous, and that kind of kills a bloodline, when you get all brother and sister and kissing cousins and stuff. And that's a lot what comics feel like now. I mean, it seriously does.
They just announced the DC has been trying to do those young adult bullshit stuff, and they announced one for Constantine, and it's going to be a Harry Potter type of thing. Why not just do Tim Hunter?
I just saw something about that earlier.
And then the thing. Whoever's running that thing now, okay, it's like those characters are not supposed to have personalities. They're just trademarks.
Yeah,
we can use them however they want. And if all of a sudden they decided they're going to do some sort, one of these days they decide they're going to do some sort of home improvement type of thing with the character, they will.
Yeah, I understand exactly what you mean, because when I saw the artwork and the little blurb for that, it reminded me, this is not really John Constantine. This is Encyclopedia Brown in the DC young adult,
Yeah.
And I like Encyclopedia Brown. Guys, I got medication I need to take. I'll be right back. Sorry. Or it's going to be real messy here in a minute.
And we'll continue running. Okay, one of the things is that I realize that Marvel and DC are trying to tap other markets.
Sure.
They're not going to do that with their normal brands. The brands come with meaning attached, even in refrigerators, and that's even more true here when the product is fiction. So you can't just use one brand. You can't just say that you're gonna. They have this Batman Catwoman in high school bullshit thing, and that doesn't make any sense. You don't think, oh yeah, Batman in high school with a love triangle, that's just what I needed to want to pick up Batman. Nobody's thinking that.
Right.
If they want to go get new people who are not interested in reading their properties, that means they don't like superheroes, and they will not buy something that is associated with superheroes. You have to come up with something new. They have to come up with something new. And in decades past, before the direct market ruined everything by only focusing on superheroes, they had other stuff. They had other properties and other types of books, and they have to do that again.
Well, I've been preaching that to people for 20 years, and then is it what I'm trying to say? I don't know if I can say it properly. Do you have that same stigma in Europe to the same degree that we have it here in the States? That the majority of comics that most readers are interested in these days are mainstream superheroes.
No.
I kind of figured, yeah.
No, especially because in France, the best-selling comics are still, whenever a new Asterix or Lucky Luke comes out, or a Blake and Mortimer, those are still the ones that sell the most.
Right.
If there is a genre dominating the charts, and there isn't, not in the way that superheroes dominate in the USA, it's humor.
Okay.
Also, historical fiction is kind of big right now, but here's the thing. If you don't like historical fiction, you're not going to buy a historical fiction book. but you may buy something else. There's always something in the genre that appeals to you the most.
Right.
And they're not going to. If you're a horror fan and you don't like Asterix, you were not going to buy an Asterix book if they decided to just do something that looked like Gene Colan.
I was just going to say, just to see a crossover, Asterix meets Cthulhu. But getting back to something you said just a little bit earlier, you're saying why did they do it with Constantine? Why didn't they do it with Tim Hunter? From my understanding, and I could be wrong, and I'm not sure what all the legal part of it is, but basically DC has a gentleman's agreement with Neil Gaiman. If they're going to go around and mess with his stuff, he's free to walk on them.
But there's a Books of Magic series coming out right now.
Right, but what I'm saying is, like, if I don't remember do you remember who created Constantine?
It was Alan Moore.
Okay, it was Alan Moore. Okay, so DC, we know what DC's history with Alan Moore is like.
Yeah.
You know? If DC was to take one of Gaiman's characters, which technically they own the rights to, and just completely muck it up, chances are that Neil may go his own way. And DC does not want that.
Well, he hasn't been doing stuff for them in a while.
That's true. Well, he's been overseeing things that other people have been writing, and
sure. But yeah, there's a different
relation with him than just about any other creator that's ever worked for them.
Well, but
he's kind of a unique situation.
Sure, but it's probably the easiest to adapt without pissing off Neil. If it's the same character.
Yeah, I mean, I would assume it. It would, of course, you'd have to do the okay on it. But I still think they should just create an original character.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, guys. I had a major sneezing attack after that.
It's all right.
But I came in right when you said the original characters and stuff. I mean, just imagine if they did. They actually have some really good stories going on, but you're taken away from it because it's not the character. I mean, not to jump back in here, but that's what drives me nuts. There's a lot of potential here, but it's not the character,
Well, I think they're just afraid that anything that doesn't have brand recognition these days is not going to sell well.
Yeah, but they do stuff with brand recognition, and everybody complains that it's not true to the source material.
Oh, it's back to the battered spouse syndrome.
Well, they used to do this thing where you introduced a new character in something that had brand recognition, and you got people interested in it, and then they spin off. They were spun. It was a miniseries. I mean, if you go back and look at Valiant Comics, some of their books were valuable because they would introduce a character in one of their books, and the next thing you know, Exo has his own book. From Exo, you got Shadow Man. Shadow Man got his own book. Harbinger, all of them, they all appeared. They took, Ray, whatever you want to say it. He was part of a flip book and a story with Magnus, and then he got his own series. There's ways to do it that's already been done. I mean, that's why this stuff isn't rocket science to me. If you know the hobby and know little tricks of the trade, just from remembering how you read comics as a kid, you would have a plan. Maybe they even had backup features for characters, before they spun out their own book. You chum the water a little bit, get people interested, and if they're interested, you give them their own book. Right. Spider-Man was in a throwaway story in Amazing Fantasy 15, before he got Spider-Man #1. That's how they knew how to give him his own book. That was the only issue of that whole series that sold anything, Yeah,
I don't think in most cases even the creators are that much interested in creating new characters for Marvel or DC because, they won't own them and they won't have a piece of them.
Yeah.
And they're saving their ideas for the creator-owned stuff.
Oh, man. If we switch topics, I think this is a good one here that Gore Vidal brought up here. Just throw it out there. Yeah. But I mean, it just amazes me, and we don't know the ins and outs of actually working in comics. I mean, we've read interviews and things like that, so I kind of acknowledge that. But it just amazes me how you can just look and if your one job is to create comics, what's the problem here? That's your one job. I mean, that's how you make the money.
And I don't think that these people wake up and think, oh, how am I going to ruin this comic that people love? They don't think like that. Of course, they want their stuff to be successful.
Sometimes
there have been. I mean, Paolo, I'm not piling up on you here, but there have been creators who are just who have admitted they have stayed on books just to piss people off and do things as a reaction to messing with them on Twitter. I'm not going to name names, Dan Slott,
okay. Yeah, but that's not the real world. They know that they have sales targets that they have to meet. They know that, and they want to be successful. Because that can mean that even if they don't do a creator-owned book, they can get to Hollywood and pitch a TV series or something. Because I'm the guy who had a big success with this comic.
I think it was Van Sciver when he actually did talk more about working in comics on his channel back in the day. But it seems like he was talking about if a creative team met a threshold with how many books a month they sold, they got a bonus, you know? So to me, it seems like that's an incentive to make sure that you at least write something that's going to sell. You know what I mean? Instead of having, I don't know, your mark on the book or something. I don't know.
Technically, in technical terms, there's a lot of things that prevent them from having that type of success. Number one is the way that they write they may not feel inclined to create a new character, the way they write stories for the trade, because that means that they don't have to come up with new characters that often. Add to that the insane amount of comics that each of the big two publishes per month, which means there's no proper advertising unless it's for the big events. So there's a lot of things that will prevent a comic from becoming successful, building up steam. It's just not going to happen. So yeah, I think that the big bosses, they don't want something to grow. If something is new, it's got to be a success now.
Yeah,
and that's why they go with the established brands, because having name recognition, people will gravitate towards them, although they're not good enough to have people talk about them and want to pick them up further for the next few issues. So it's just not going to happen anymore. But I don't think that they know how to create new characters or new types of stories that will appeal to that supposed big mass audience who is just waiting to start buying comic books.
Yeah, and I totally agree. That's a big part of it too. You know, it just seems like there's more and more reasons that seem to sabotage why a book could be good, and then on top of that, the one that you can get away from is ego. You know, or taking things personal. Maybe it's a matter of character forgetting it's a job, if that makes any sense. You know, some of the things about, I guess, social media is either they're doing a character on social media or they're exposing themselves for being, you know, some pretty egocentric people. Maybe that's a way to put it. You know, I'm trying to be nice here because I don't know their lives and I don't know them, you know. But if I take my experience at conventions and stuff, there's people that are just fantastic to meet, and maybe they're appreciative or they know, you know, they just have a good attitude or whatever. Then you got those people where you're just like, after you meet them, you're really hoping that other people that you meet and love their work and admire, it gives you this feeling like, oh God, please don't be an asshole. Please don't be an asshole. You know?
Yeah, it's interesting you brought that up, because meeting people at conventions.
Yeah.
I've maybe even just once that I can think of have run into anybody that I didn't think was, you know, really nice, great to talk to, you know, super people. You want to hang out with them. I can really only think of one person. I'm not going to name who that person is because he's not a major name, but that really just came off to me as like, don't think I'd want to spend time with that person.
Yeah. And I think I know who it is. I think we've talked about it.
No, I don't think we ever have. If you knew who this is, I'd be very surprised.
Got you. I don't know. I mean, I totally get that. I think it's just some people forget that it's a business. That's all it comes down to. And I've heard people like Jim Shooter and people in the business say that, it is a business at the end of the day. Your job is to sell books. And it seems like there's like some weird security that they have where they consider themselves freelancers and stuff that I don't know where that comes from. Like, I don't know if it's a good old boy system. A lot of people talk about they got into comics because of the people they knew over the years.
Right.
The last one was Louise Simonson, who admitted that in the 70s she was in some other book publishing work that had nothing to do with comics, but they lived in the same building as like I think they said Kaluta and Reichton and all this stuff. And if you're into comic book lore, you've always heard about this apartment building, in the 70s that all these comic book guys lived in.
Well, plus, all the people that were working in comics, I won't say all, but 99.9% that were working for the big two, or even Charlton, lived in New York City or somewhere within driving distance.
Yeah.
So, everybody knew everybody.
Yeah, there's some nepotism in getting into comics and stuff. I mean, it was definitely a club, but there were still people outside of that getting into comics through submissions and stuff like Art Adams and stuff. I mean, there were still people getting brought over,
Yeah, the pennies got in through conventions.
Yeah, letter writing, conventions, letter writing. When we say letter writing, people like Kurt Busiek and stuff. It amazes me how I can find comics from Captain America to whatever where it's Kurt Busiek again. There's people who knew what they were doing. It was
George R. Martin had one of his letters printed in like a issue of Fantastic Four way back in the day.
Yeah, like issue 26 or 14 or something. Yeah. I mean, we're talking way back then.
Yeah, way back.
Yeah. It blows my mind when I read those old books and read the letter columns, and I'll see somebody like from Withville that's local around here. I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah. Do you remember the name T.M. Maple from letter columns?
I don't know.
Very prodigious letter writer. I think he's passed away, but you'd see his letters would pop up in books all the time.
Oh, here we go. Mastodon's got a great point. Didn't Mark Bagley get in through a contest? I don't think it was a contest. They used to have this book that you could get. It was like tabloid size, and it was broken up. You could write, you could letter, you could ink, you could draw, and it was a Spider-Man story, and it was made for submissions. You would do that and send it in. Now, if Mark Bagley got through a contest, then I'm thinking of somebody else. I know that Mark Bagley came in the new universe and just kept churning it out after that once he got his foot in the door.
Yeah, but it was a sort of Marvel tryout contest, and I think it was with that type of book. I'm not sure how regular it was. I remember Bagley telling that story.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, there's different ways to get into it, but a lot of the guys, and like I said, Louise Simonson it's fresh in my mind because she was the last one I heard talk about it. Just flat out pretty much just put it out there. She got into comics because they knew people that worked in comics, Right. She got in with them, and then they kind of drug her into it the way she kind of told the story, and it was brought up to her because they held up that House of Secrets, 92, first appearance of Swamp Thing, where Bernie drew a picture of her. She was talking about she signs those books all the time, Yeah. And then she just kind of rattled on the story, and I was just sort of like, maybe she's just reminiscing too much, but she's really making it sound like it was like nepotism.
No, she and Jeff Jones were involved at the time.
She brought his name up. She flat out said that she was married to him when he was identifying his mail back then. Oh man, we've gone all over the place, man. This is crazy what we're talking about.
Yeah, I had something I was going to say, but I can't remember what it was now. So my whole train of thought just kind of derailed.
Well, it's probably my fault.
Something that Paolo was talking about earlier was you're discovering all these things that, in terms of comics industry history, that people don't realize, what they had at one point. You think it's bad in comics? You should do that with science fiction.
Oh, I'm not surprised at all.
Much stuff out there, and some of it is really good,
and some of it is really bad. A few years ago,
that's very.
There's a colleague of mine in the automotive press. He's also a fan of science fiction, but I'm a dabbler compared to him, and he moved houses one day, and his wife made him get rid of about 80% of his collection. So and he called me. Do you want to?
Ouch!
You want to bring this books home? And I said, yeah, okay. So I filled up five suitcases.
God.
Yeah.
You did say his wife made him.
Yeah.
All right. Real quick. No, I have been sick this week, Gorvidal, so I have not made it to Ollie's. Maybe I'll go this weekend, see what's there.
You should have a, you know how they do like late night talk shows where they'd have like graphics and everything and have a little segment, you know, like Dave's top 10 list or whatever. You should do that for Ollie's books.
I might do it. And as soon as I start doing that, Ollie's is going to get less and less comics or something. It's interesting that DC has not tried to market Sandman, Books of Magic related titles to young people at the time. Their primary readers of those books were young people.
Here's the thing about Books of Magic. There was an attempt at adapting the comics to novels.
Yeah,
and I think only 2 came out.
Yeah, and they were actually at Walmart's. They were accessible. What's interesting about the Books of Magic and the Sandman and stuff, doing the young literature and stuff, I kind of think, I really think Harry Potter has put a dent in them trying to do that. For whatever reason, Timothy Hunter in those books came out like in 1990, years before Harry Potter. There was a comic book dude, his name was Mark, he's still on my Facebook, from England, who pointed out in the mid 80s there was another book, and I don't know if it was through 2000 AD or whatever, but it was another character that looked like Harry Potter, if you will, and stuff, right? But Neil Gaiman would never really, somebody finally got Neil Gaiman to address it about Timothy Hunter versus Harry Potter, and all he would say is that they had the same inspirations on it. So that always has given me a reason why maybe Neil hasn't allowed them. I don't know. I mean, I know there's some kind of gentleman's agreement with Neil and his characters. You know, they'll ask permission or something.
Plus, there's stuff in Sandman that's not really aimed at a young adult market.
Oh, yeah.
There's some really dark stuff in the early part of Sandman.
Yeah. But I was going to say something, but I heard this comedian, and I think I was talking about this before we went there, that really cracked me up. I never knew Harry Potter was quite the phenomenon until a couple years ago, where we had like the 5th, 6th generation of people coming on making videos, and there were some young guys, and they were like in their 20s. And one of the first shows I did with them, I cracked a Harry Potter joke, and I was told, "Hey, now ease up on the Harry Potter." I'm like, "Oh my God, this is like their Goonies." You know, that's where my mind went. I'm like, "Oh, you know." But this comedian, I'm going to find the video, came out and said that he could never get into Harry Potter because it's nothing but Star Wars with bad lightsabers. And he went through it. At first I was laughing like I'm in, and it was a TikTok video, and it was a guy reacting to this guy's audio. And he went through and he put out Harry Potter was an orphan like Luke Skywalker, met a guy with a beard who told him he was something special, wouldn't tell him what really happened to his dad, and went through the whole Harry Potter mythos. And it was like, oh my God, this is Star Wars. You know, I'm like, oh my God. You know, the only thing it missed was Voldemort being his real dad. That was the only thing that wasn't in there. And I was like, oh my gosh. You know,
I wonder if you showed this guy the Joseph Campbell book, The Power of Myth, if his brain would explode.
Oh man!
You know that normies aren't really used to reading books. So if there's something that they read, they think, "Wow, this is amazing! I didn't know stuff like this existed," and there will probably be nothing exactly like it.
The problem you may run into with this now is if somebody expresses interest in something, you know, and they're really into it, and you even dare suggest that they may want to check out something else that's similar that they might like, you get labeled as a gatekeeper.
Yeah, and the label is, and the other thing is at our age, and I do think it's our responsibility on this one. I mean, by no means am I going to like, you know, I'm just making a suggestion here, right? But what I've learned is that we have to remember, in our opinion, that we remember when comics was huge and big and everywhere. It's like a golden time. we're going on 10 years of comics, in my opinion, really being crappy. I feel like if you have collected comics before 2009 and you're still collecting them now, pat yourself on the back. But there's a generation of kids who are into the comics and stuff. This is all they've known. When we talk about why this stuff is messed up, they weren't there to see what we're talking about to compare. This is all they've known,
right.
you know. And that's really something that I really feel bad for them about.
And we show them we show them the 80s stuff, and they don't understand the art. They say the art is bad. They say the dialogues are bad.
A lot of it's dated. I mean, that's what I'm saying. I can get where they're coming from. I enjoyed the stuff from the 60s in the 80s, you know, but I can acknowledge that some of that was kind of hokey. You know what I'm saying? You know.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a part of me that empathizes, but then there's another part of me where I'm just sort of like, you're not giving it any credit either.
Yeah. To me, the problem, I know that stuff gets dated and they're made for the time that they're made in. The thing is, the comparison that I make is that today they are not technically as proficient either as writers or as artists. And if we spend that time breaking it down, I'm not sure they'll understand because they're new. I mean, we can understand the technical aspects that make up a story now that we've been reading for 30 or 40 years. But I'm not sure that the new readers will understand that technical aspect.
Well, what's had this on my mind is a couple weeks ago, I was on a show, Modern Men, and it was Crisis on Infinite Earths. And I asked them, if you guys ever do that on Crisis, when you get there, I want to be on the show. So they let me on the show. And one of the first things I noticed was I come from a time before comic books were structured to be in trades. You got a comic book and you had a month before the next one came out. And I remember reading and rereading like an issue of Crisis before it came out. These guys are trying to sit down and read a whole trade and read the story at one time, and it wasn't even designed like that.
Yeah.
It's too much information. Comics were packed more full because you had a month to read it before the second one came out. You got your money's worth. You didn't take 2 or 3 minutes to read a comic book. Squadron Supreme #1 took an hour for me to read the first time, I think, you know. So we come from a time where even when the comics were coming out different, trades weren't even on anybody's mind. You know,
right, I wish I could do a reenactment of the guy, you know, the famous voiceover guy that does the movie trailers.
Yeah.
In a world before trade paperbacks.
Yeah. So, and that's the other thing, you know, that's part of our memory and stuff. Even when trade started popping up, not everything was going to be put in a trade. We live in a time now where I remember seeing a video like maybe 4 years ago where this guy was taking the challenge. No, he wrote an article where he's convinced every comic you want to read is in a trade somewhere. And he went down the list.
It's not.
Yeah.
Believe me.
From the big two, yeah. I mean,
well,
it was
from the big
Marvel
two,
DC.
yeah.
I know that I can point out stuff. I can have a list of stuff that hasn't been collected.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead, Scott.
I can think of some off-the-wall stuff from the last 20, 30 years in both DC and Marvel that hasn't been collected. Or I may be wrong, but
there's a lot of stuff from the last
here's an example.
Doesn't need to be.
I can't remember if this came out in the 80s or the 90s. I think it may have been the 90s. Did they ever do any trade paperback compilations of the Damage Control series?
Yes.
Okay. I was curious. I didn't know if they had or if they hadn't.
Yeah, and I was also getting ready to say that it seems like I remember an odd issue is like they have an omnibus. I think they're like an odd issue will be collected in an omnibus, like What the and stuff, right?
But there is one with all the 3 series, the story that appeared in Marvel Comics Presents, and the preview that appeared in Marvel Age.
There we go. Now, the other thing, I'm real careful with those because for years I was telling people, Strike Force Moratori, you need to check it out because the guy that wrote that beat Marvel in contract. They messed up his contract, thus they'll never collect it. Then I found out a collection came out in 2010, like right around the time I was telling people this.
Yeah, the first 8 issues, I think. Yeah. And I once, Peter B. Gillis was in the Comic Book Historians Facebook group, and I asked him, hey, is there any chance that they'll put out a volume 2 of Strike Force Moriarty? And he said, only when pigs fly.
Got it.
Well,
yeah.
You ever seen the Pink Floyd video where they cut the balloon loose?
No.
They had there's a video of I think they were shooting a music video or something in London, and they had this flying pig, it was a balloon, and it got cut loose it came loose by accident, and the thing floated around like they were trying to catch it, track it on the ground. It ended up, 25 miles, down road later before it ever came back down. It's like, hey, pigs fly sometimes.
Jared's back.
Okay.
Hey there. Hey. I'm back.
Oh.
Figured I'd see if you guys were still on and pop over.
Yeah, we're complaining about stuff.
I'll tell you what, I'm actually glad you're back. I'm going to have to eat in a minute. I'm going to be an old man.
We'll just rotate around in shifts.
No. I took some antibiotics and stuff a little bit, and I started realizing I'm supposed to eat with those. For the last 10 minutes, I've been quietly suffering.
That's fine. Go ahead and eat.
But I want to bring this up real quick, and then I'll shut up. But this is one of the things that I think has kind of killed a little bit of this used to be part of the hobby to me. Maybe you guys can talk about it. Gretzky is saying that a lot of YouTubers and comics don't care how much a book is worth. They're flippers. I totally get the idea of people, being mad at those people that's their whole way of working this. But that used to be part of the hobby. You see a spinner rack, you'd see 2 comics that, of the same, 2 copies of the same comic. And you knew you could get a good trade out of it or sell it later. But it was just part of it. And now it's the last couple of years, I've heard people say flippers and just venom is coming out of their mouth,
Yeah. Oh. Well, yeah. There isn't really an appreciation of the comics if they're only paying attention to the monetary value.
Yeah.
And I've seen people say that, I wouldn't care about comics.
We have an echo. Is that you, Jared?
What was that?
We have an echo. Is that you?
I don't think so. I have my same usual. I just heard you breaking up. I didn't hear an echo. So
hold on. Paulo, say something.
Yeah, there was a guy saying that you wouldn't care about comics if they didn't have any monetary value. I think it's a bit sad. Okay, sure, whatever. It's sad.
Yeah. I get mad going to Walmart, and if there's I don't buy many toys, don't get me wrong, but I get mad when I go in there and it's wiped out, and then I'll see a Facebook group with a guy who sells, he's a guy that he has this store that is old toys and old CDs and anything, and people will wipe out Walmart to put them on eBay or to take it to that store. That drives me nuts.
I know
that's the kind of stuff I can't stand when you're just wiping it out.
And there's another thing. There are a lot of people sending modern comics to CGC so they can get a 9.8. If every brand new comic is CGC 9.8, none of them will be worth anything.
Yeah. Well, CGC.
I love watching those videos where they're disappointed when it comes back as a 9.6, though. That's just fun.
There's somebody's name who would not be named because he was a big asshole in the community back in the day. But I got sent a video and a message, and I was like, I don't want to watch this, and they were like, watch it. So I watched it, and the first thing that happened was he was bragging about all the books he's been sending off to CGC, and he comes up and he's got a 9.4, and he gets quiet. He pre-recorded this. He had to have known what was on there. And he he's half about to cry and half about trying to get mad and being just don't understand how this isn't a 9.8. And I'm just sort of you're a grown-ass man. What are you doing? Why are you uploading this? And a little tear. You can see the little tear right here. I love my comics. I would cry if I ripped a book when I was a kid. I get it, but this was ridiculous, man. I was like, wow,
Yeah. On a more upbeat note, there was this Brazilian guy. He showed a copy of a comic that he sold when he was 16, a Brazilian Captain America. And like most of the kids in other countries, there's a lot of people who write their names on their comics so that people know that it's theirs. So he sold it. When people buy those comics, they don't care that there's another name in there, because they're not supposed to have monetary value.
Right.
But the guy bought the comic back. He found it at age 47. 30 years later, the comic came back home.
That is.
That's a sign.
That just reminded me. I told you I have a friend, Barry Dutter, who used to work at Marvel. He was an editor there, who now buys and sells comic collections, and he's in Southern California, and he does that. And he just found one. He was like, "Oh my God, this is so disappointing that he didn't buy, but he saw it like on Craigslist or something, because he goes on all that stuff to try and find the collections." And it was a Silver Age collection, lots of Silver Age Marvels. Except the guy was some kind of religious nut who blacked out words in all the comics.
Oh, wow.
Anything he deemed offensive, he blacked. So all these Silver Age Marvels from the 60s are redacted.
So he has the Ned Flanders collection.
Yeah, I'm sitting here thinking about the books from the 60s. What could he have found? I'm like, what could he have found? They said Beatles. They said the damn Beatles.
I don't know, Scott. You remember you pointed me at the direction of that book with the strange comic book panels. Man, everything is every day we get a new panel of Superboy in a compromising situation.
Yeah, there's a couple of Facebook groups or something where they will post panels out of context.
Yeah.
And you look at some of these, you're like, how in the hell did this ever get past an editor?
See, the ones I always see are people getting webbed to the face. And that's all you see is just
there's a lot of Archies with whipped cream, man. Pies.
Well, here's a good John Romita story. I don't know if I've ever told this one here. One day,
yes.
Okay, he's got to get his food. Then we'll tell the John Romita story.
No, go on. I can hear you. It's okay.
Oh, you can hear me?
Okay,
I'll tell you the John Romita story. It was one day, Marvel Bullpen, early 90s, and we were talking about, the Seduction of the Innocent book that Frederick Wortham wrote. And they have the section called Pictures for Children Who Know How to Look.
Right.
Where there was allegedly all these penises drawn in things and this and that. Yeah. And John Romita was like, I always used to say, that guy was crazy. He's just finding stuff in there that wasn't there. He's like, then I was talking to one of the artists from those times. And he was like, no, we used to hide stuff in there all the time.
Right.
He was like, I defended these guys for years, and it was true. They were hiding penises and stuff.
Yeah, it's like you hear these stories you thought were urban myths about how things like that popped up in Disney movies.
Yeah.
And you do some screen grabs and like, yeah, that was pretty blatant.
Yeah. Then there was a famous one by a disgruntled guy at the printer.
Oh gosh.
Early 90s.
Yeah.
There was a hardcover Captain America reprint book of Captain America stuff from the Golden Age.
Uh-huh.
And there was a guy, I think we were told it was a guy at the printer who was disgruntled and got fired, but before he left, on the yellow plate and it was just on the yellow plate of one of the panels where like Bucky was tied down to some giant machine. He drew a penis on Bucky, and it printed in all these $50 hardcovers.
Did they have to pulp them all, or?
No, no one noticed it. And then they had to, have a return on it. But I think everybody just kept theirs. I don't know if anyone.
Yeah, there's a very infamous story about that. Also happened with a C-3PO trading card that came back out.
Oh yes,
way back.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
And at first you read this and you think that's crazy, but then you see it's like, oh yeah.
But this guy was clever enough to do it only on the yellow plate, so it was really subtle. Right.
There was
and
a
you
story,
wouldn't notice it if you were just flipping through.
I can't remember which special effects artist it was. It may have been somebody that worked for John Dykstra, maybe. But there were some certain words that you would not get on daytime or nighttime TV, even for that matter, in the original Battlestar Galactica series. But if you know where to look in the star patterns in the background, There are certain words there's like, oh, yeah, there it is.
And the star patterns.
And the star patterns, yeah. So I guess people can get really creative if they get ticked off enough to, hide things.
EC Horror Comics got butchered because of that quack. They sure did. Well, they actually got butchered too because of DC and DC mainly, who wanted them out of business. That's why when they made the Comics Code, they made all the titles of EC Comics forbidden.
Right. And Gaines didn't exactly do himself any favors when he did his testimony.
Right, because he was on.
They ripped him to. Yeah, he was on amphetamines. Is what they used for pot pills back in the day. But they just basically ripped him to shreds.
Well, try to defend horror comics against a bunch of super moral prudes. How do you do it?
Even
they
so,
hate them no matter what.
Yeah, he probably was not the best person that could have testified for them at the time.
I don't know if there was a good person.
Yeah, that's true too.
I mean, when they're out to blame you for something, it's tough. And what you do is make horror comics,
right? And
you're with a whole bunch of people who have no appreciation nor ever will for a horror comic. How do you explain why a bloody axe and a skull makes people happy? They think you're deranged and a maniac if you like comics with a bloody axe and a skull in it.
Now you're just thinking about work. And they're like, oh, I see his point. Yeah.
To them, they're like, this is the devil's work.
I didn't realize it, but I was talking about that on something else the other day. The versions of Seduction of the Innocent that have the bibliography in it, the prices you pay for those are far more expensive than the versions that don't.
My friend Bunch used to go to cons and have artists sign his version of Seduction of the Innocent.
That's funny. I can just imagine him getting it signed by somebody that was so not family friendly in comics. It would have been amusing. I can't think of anybody off the top of my head, but Howard Chaykin maybe. Yeah.
Just so Howard Chaykin's teaching some sort of online class about storytelling. I thought that was pretty interesting.
He knows how to do that on the internet.
I'm surprised we don't see more of that, to tell you the truth. Yeah. Oh my God. So I listened on my phone while I was in the other room and then came back in here and stuff. We've got a huge lag compared to, the comments and us and stuff, right?
Oh, I've noticed that just flopping back and forth between the StreamYard page and the YouTube page. There's a big lag there.
Yeah, I was like, that was a short story. I was like,
we hit the fast forward button when you're going between rooms.
Oh, I apologize for that, but I really needed something on my belly. But anyway.
We understand.
Yeah, let's all talk about my health. So that'll be nice. Oh my gosh. So as I'm rearranging things and stuff, it just amazes me like how I have comics from when I was a kid that I couldn't get rid of. Check this out, man. I actually went and saw Kiss. I think my stepdad was still dating my mom when we stopped at a 7-Eleven in Johnson City, going to a Kiss concert with a band called Angel, opening up for him when we bought the Marvel Super Special. And this is it now. I mean, like this thing. When I say I have comics that I've read and they disintegrated, I'm not.
There you go.
I'm not exaggerating. Yeah.
Tell you something. I wish I had when I was a kid. I don't have any more. Were a bunch of the sad sacks.
I
remember having a whole bunch of those, and I wish I still had them.
I wish I had my Beagle Boys, as funny as that sounds, but these 3-packs that, you get for 99 cents back then, they had Disney books, Heckle and Jekyll, do you guys have stuff like this? And, this is one where I wish I could actually show your buddy Walt, but he, the Manhunter and Batman was big in the house, the Detective Comics. This is from the actual run that was I think this came out when I was born. I was a year old, so I got a hold of this when I was 4. You know, my Flash Gordon. I think I've replaced some of these. This is a Gold Key Flash Gordon. Brave and the Bold Wildcat story, I think, from like 1968. I got to go by memory on some of these. But I can't get over how Disney was such an influence in my collecting, and I never talk about it.
Yeah.
I didn't think I was that kind of kid, you know.
Yeah.
Some 60s Top Cat from Charlton, I think.
Like my origin story with comics has to do with, I don't remember my comics before Hulk 200.
Yeah.
Because when I was 9 or 10 when that came out. And my neighbor had Hulk 201, 202, and 203. And that's when I first realized they all went together in one big story. So I traded him all the comics I had for those 3. So I must have had comics like that, but I don't even remember what they were now.
Right.
Because it's like that started my collecting, even though I had comics before then.
I couldn't even begin to pinpoint which book that was the first one I ever got. I do remember having, several books. Like I had the Marvel Treasury Spider-Man when I was a kid.
Right.
But I do remember going to somebody's house that was the babysitter at the time because my mom was in college. And so she took me over there while they were babysitting with me. Some of the other kids were there. We started looking at comics. I do remember, I didn't know it at the time, but what they were looking at was Russ Heath's Sea Devils. And I can remember those images in my mind still to this day, but not knowing what they were until years later.
Well, I can remember the books that I read over and over, and I'll have to look up and see what they are, but this is like the first appearance of Insect Queen when Lana Lang got the ring from the alien and said that she could only turn into an insect. And once you turn into an insect, you can't do it again. And she turns into, I remember being a kid reading these, and she was like turning into a grasshopper and jumping on buildings, getting antennas to read people's mind, to cheat on tests, and then turning into a centipede. And I'm like, what are you doing? That's like 5 and 2 pages. You know, it was like stressing me out at 5. Like,
you're afraid she was going to go through all the entire insect kingdom before she got to the back of the book.
Yeah. And what's funny is probably in the 90s, I got the second Superboy issue that she popped up in. And to get out of that little flaw in the ring, they had one panel where the alien just came out of the sky and said, "We removed that flaw in the ring," and then they just fly off, and that was it. They went on with the story. They gave it one panel for the alien just to pop down on Earth and tell her, "Go ahead, we fixed it." Cracked me up.
Yeah, and it's funny because some of my old family pictures. My mother took pictures a lot, and there's like pictures of me. I don't know, 6, 7. And there are sometimes comic books around me in my room.
Yeah.
I don't remember any of those. Until I had that epiphany about Hulk 200 through 203, I wasn't a comic collector. I was just kind of reading comics, I guess. I guess I liked them because they were around.
Well, this book, this is just a piece of it, but I've replaced it. But this was a Robin Crusoe Disney comic.
Okay.
And it messed me up because I'm like, heck on, that guy looks like Dick Van Dyke after I finally figured out who Dick Van Dyke was. So I'm sitting here and I'm like, did they have another one of these? This was great and all this stuff, right? It was probably about 10 years later I realized this was the movie adaptation of Robinson Crusoe that they made. I was like, this is awesome, And
it's funny too because after Hulk 200, I have like 2 different distinct memories. I can remember like the first issue of a comic book I read, and then I can remember the first issue when I started collecting it.
Yeah.
And they aren't always the same issue. And sometimes the first issue that I read is like from before Hulk 200. And I'm like, ooh, I must have read this one before Hulk 200, but I still wasn't a collector then. But
yeah. Well, I remember I had Daredevil #2, and in 2010 it was coverless, and I put it on eBay for shits and giggles, and that thing went for $38 coverless, and the splash page was kind of ripped in half. A big chunk was out of it, but it still had the stuff down here. Here's X-Men #40. This is the stuff I was reading when I first started out. Here's a Spider-Man. I don't know. It's an early one. #44. you know. And these had covers when I started out, but I got a whole bunch of Silver Age books that I was reading.
I saw a video today from what's his name, Four-Way Flashers on comics. He doesn't make many videos these days, but he's been around for a long time. And he bought a coverless comic that he was showing. He's like, I never buy coverless comics. And he bought it because it was signed by Jack Kirby and Stan Lee.
There you go.
And he's like, and it was signed, of course, underneath the indicia like they used to do in the old days. And he's like, well, since it doesn't have a cover, it's easy to display. And he's like, if it had a cover on it, I wouldn't have been able to display the signatures. Now I can.
Oh, I'd made the same move. I think it's safe to say, But I'll cover the Silver Age books all day long if I run across them. Just to have them to read and have the original ads and letters and stuff in there.
Yeah,
I've got to get on Pope Cerebus' The First channel. I'm not getting alerts when he puts up a video. Sleepy Readers popped in. They're all talking to each other. We're actually working on what are we on here? We're well into our second hour on our way to our third
hour. I already left for 50 minutes and came back.
Yeah.
I was gone from 7 to nearly 8.
He's going to taunt us for a second of time.
Yeah.
I've had to make myself healthy to come back twice, and it was worth it.
Of course I am French. Why do you think I have this outrageous accent?
Tim went to the Lazarus pit. Here's a question.
I watched your October haul, and I commented about some book in it. What was I commenting on at the beginning of the show? Something in Pope Cerebus's book. Oh, Lazarus. That's right. He got the new Lazarus, and I was saying I actually missed I missed Lazarus. I stopped buying it because I don't like the new format, but I want to go back and get it in trade. And he had the new Lazarus in his haul. And I was like, oh, I love it when I get nostalgic for a comic that's new.
Well, with the name of Lazarus, you figure it's always going to come back later. I found out that their Dark Horse is actually reprinting that first Usagi saga book in hardcover.
Oh, cool.
And I was like, great. Now I can actually buy one and fit in the damn gap that's missing there.
It's nice when things come back in print.
Yeah, and God, the prices on that one in particular just, cost you like 2 major limbs.
It's amazing how certain Usagi stuff is really expensive, but no one buys it.
Right.
Because the demand is so small for it, but it's really expensive when someone wants one. I guess someone buys it.
Until Scott actually handed me a trade of Usagi, I knew about it. I knew it was good, but I never would have took a chance. Once you get somebody to read the book, we
hooked another one.
Yeah. Let me comment on this. Part of the magic for comics for me is the ads that used to be in them. They were just as important as anything. I got a pair of these specs, the X-ray specs you would see in the 90s. Don't do it. It's not real. Okay.
Oh man! Don't tell me that.
At some point, we got the big lag going, so we're going to be backing up on what we're talking here. At some point, as a kid, I found a huge shop that was packed with coverless paperbacks in comics with the top third of the cover cut off, totally illegal, and it was called The Printer's Devil. That's appropriate.
Yeah, that's when they had to return the logo in order to get credit.
Right.
It's how I ended up getting a nice collection. My grandmother worked at a store and with a spinner rack, and she would tear the backs off them and claim there's damage. I got free comics all the time.
Yep. That's how the scheme worked in the newsstand days.
I'm telling you, man, grandmothers are the best. I'm telling you.
But when the mob does it, it's a real problem.
Yeah.
You're less likely to get your kneecaps broken by your grandmother, though.
Yeah, I tell you what,
Cerebus gets indie books I've never heard of before. I'm like, where did he find that one?
Yeah, I'm therefore now that I was on that big quest to get all about 275 issues of Cerebus from 25 to 300. He's put some stuff in there where I'm just sort of like, he'll print anything. Some of his indie stuff. He reached a point in that stuff where like I could not make it through. And I was like, notebook paper? What is this? I'm like, oh my gosh.
I get the feeling one of these days when I go to my library room and start going through the boxes, just cataloging more stuff to put in. It's going to be nostalgia city.
Oh yeah.
Well, we keep saying it, and I don't want to build it up and stuff, but you're going to have to get a camera. We're really going to have to do that because people need to see.
That's never going to happen.
Yeah. You just
don't say never.
Somebody, do you have his address? Send it to Sleepy Reader. He said he'd get him a camera. On the sly, send Sleepy Reader Scott's address.
Speaking of Sleepy Reader, he's probably going to watch one of his older videos because I have some saved in my watch later list in YouTube. And I sent a comment on one, and I'm thinking he's going to be like one of these days, like, man, that video is like 4 years old. Why am I getting comments on it now?
It happens all the time. It happens all the time.
Yeah.
My older stuff gets watched more than my newer stuff, and I was still making videos regularly.
Yeah, I've still got some of your stuff, like I still haven't finished Planetary yet, but when I do, I'm going to go back and watch your Planetary videos.
Well, it's been 4 years. Jared and I talked about this, I think, before you guys came on board here, but I was starting to pull out some Planetary to continue that, and I was like, holy shit, it's been 4 years.
Yeah.
It's been on my mind to do it, to finish them off. And Jared, I'm dead serious. The last issue should be a live show because we talked about it for so long about how it just fell flat at the end.
Well, there's another.
It wasn't actually the last issue. It was the second to last issue where it fell flat. Then the last issue was kind of meaningless.
Yeah.
There's another, whatchamacallem, Absolute Edition of Planetary that's coming out, I think, in like January or so. That's the whole series.
Okay, here's what's going to happen, Scott. I'm going to give Sleepy Reader my address, and then I'm going to bring it to you. Or
I can send Sleepy Reader my address. That's not a problem. But
well, okay, you get on that, Scott. Get on that.
He just wants to see my Prince Bam books, is all.
Now, if you get that camera,
here's an interesting question. Okay.
He doesn't want to talk about it anymore.
Okay, of all the people that we know in the community, and you don't necessarily have to limit yourself to one particular anything, whose collection would you be most interested in seeing what they have?
Captain Strangelove.
Okay.
Captain Strangelove has made videos back when he was more regular making videos, and he's the godfather. He started all this, okay?
Right. Mm-hmm.
And Hans did this thing where he was talking about a box of comics he couldn't find. He didn't mean a long box. He meant a cardboard box. Right. Turns out apparently he owned some property somewhere or something. He was moving things, and he was like, "Hey, I found that box." And he pulled one book out, two books out, and he went, "Oh, and this is why I was worried about it." And he pulls out a mint condition giant size X-Men #1. Right. He's like, "Yeah, I was real bad that I lost this, but it's okay because I got 9 more."
Oh my God. Yeah,
that guy has so many comic books. He's got property that he stores part of his collection.
I saw one of his videos where he's like doing a basement tour or whatever, and it was impressive just the amount of stuff that was there
in that building, just in his house. Yeah.
Comic Crypt of Castle Hills has been showing off his collection for ages now, and he's just got tons and tons and tons of stuff.
That's a guy that needs more views, but he was doing stuff to where his channel was, he probably almost lost his channel a couple of times, and I think he did one time.
Yeah, I think he switched. He had his one channel got shut down, and he had to start up another one.
Yes.
Like 2 years ago.
Yeah, and he's a great guy, man. He is a great guy, so, check him out. Okay, Sleepy, it'll happen. It's going to happen. So.
Yeah.
Catacombs was a good word. Yeah, that was pretty accurate. Yeah.
There's another guy I stumbled onto who I've been watching his videos for years. I don't think anyone else watches him. I don't think he's really in the comic community much. His name is, King Joe? He calls himself.
It's been a while, but I think I know who that is. Yeah.
And he's just been doing he's just been doing lately these and he first he was doing a few years ago these videos on redoing his, and he reminds me of my friend too, who I grew up with, who is an accumulator as much as a collector, because he's just got series that nobody, some 4-issue series from DC that nobody's interested in from 1994. He's got it, and he's showing you a little video of it, and he's been making these videos the last 2 months.
Like the second version of Angel and the Ape that was illustrated by Phil Foglio.
Yeah, and stuff like that. Yeah. And he's making videos.
I have those.
Yeah. And I just love the videos because they're all like 3 minutes long, and all of a sudden your feed gets flooded with King Joe videos. And I just like put them all on the watch list and just run them in the background for all. He doesn't have any comments on them, really. Oh, I kind of like this one. Doesn't have any great insight into them, but he's just showing them to me.
Yeah, Gretzky knows the history there. It all came back to me about why I know the name King Joe. So it's good that time is forgiving. Let's put it that way. I'm just going to throw that out there.
I've never gotten any notion that he's involved with the community enough to piss them off. But I've also never gotten the notion that he's the most socially adept person either. But I like his videos.
Yeah. I mean, I'm glad he's still there. But
I saw a video just the other day of a guy that had a massive collection of like just hardcovers and omnibuses, stuff like that. And he said he'd been collecting for like 3 or 4 years. And I'm like, my God, really? What kind of budget do you have? Are you like Bill Gates Jr.?
Well,
he had like everything. It was crazy. Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna come in here because of what you said, Scott. I can kind of explain some of that. Roboters 100 here. The original YouTube comic book uploaders have been around for more than a decade. When I met Comic Book Uno at Baltimore Con, right before we took her picture, I was like, OG comic book YouTubers here. And she was like, damn right. I mean, she gets it too, right? But the original YouTube comic book uploaders have been around for more than a decade plus. And while I fall back in and out, I love looking up old videos and hangouts. It's amazing for most that are still around. There is so many people who shut their channel down, deleted their stuff that's not there anymore. It kills me because there was a lot of gold there. I mean, it was fantastic. Finally designed by Scott and I. The original comic book roundtable, guys like Cacti 88, CTC Spirit. I mean, I'm going way back. But at the same time, it's kind of good that some of those videos are gone because there's a lot of new channels that have popped up, and I can't watch them because they're just rehashing what we did. Probably by coincidence, Comic Book Kayfabe, those guys are great. I mean, but when I watch their stuff, it's stuff that I have been a part of groups where we already did it. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. Sure. Go ahead, Scott. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't remember what I was going to say now. But.
Yeah, Sleep Reader said King Joe got into tussles with a bunch of community members. It seemed to me way back. I must have unsubbed, unless it's a different King Joe. I have no idea if it's a different King Joe or not. I cannot imagine this King Joe involved in the community. He just doesn't see. He like never. It's like there's no hint. I've been watching his videos for like maybe 5 years now, and there's never been any mention of anyone else ever in the. As far as I know, he lives on an island by himself.
You got to understand before YouTube fights were a thing, it really killed you and drained you, and you really had some problems where you were like you didn't know how to handle it. It wasn't cool. King Joe, if I'm thinking the same guy, he kept the receipts. He had the internet through he had the internet or something through his Xbox or something and these message boards and stuff, and he made the damn video and he showed the receipts. And it was something, yeah. But yeah, it could be a different King Joe,
It could, like I said, if it's the same one, this guy, like I said, there is no hint that he knows any other comic collector in the comic community. So
now, there's a lot of there was a lot of drama behind the scenes, and people tried to shy away from it. And you remember the days when Peter Paul Sean, I can't think of
GPAP.
GPAP. He did it where we had the private hangouts, like what you're looking at now, and people were rotating in. We did that for months, and it was awesome. That kept the community alive for real, And it got a lot of people in to interact with us. And some people treated us like we were like celebrities. It was really odd. You would see them just doing this number, looking at some of us. It was awesome, But going back to what Scott was saying, Comic Book Estate did a video, and a few other people did some videos where they were trying to tell people Stop spending all your money on comics to impress people in videos and try to get views. These are comic books. You know what I mean? Like, but comic book. I remember his video because he went into detail about like you're going to need retirement, you're going to need stocks, you're going to have to do a 401k, you're going to have to buy a place, you're going to have to get insurance on that place. I mean, he was their daddy smacking them down.
That's why I'm not reading new comics very much right now.
Right.
Yeah. When I was doing more videos, one of the videos that I had more fun doing was the one with the Xenozoic Tales oversized collection.
Yeah. You're talking Scott's language.
Yeah, you just pick which oversized collection are you talking about?
The one from Flask.
Oh, okay. I have all that stuff.
Mm-hmm. I think I had a wonderful conversation on the comment section with Gregor Black, because I mentioned the stuff that was being made, that the indie comics that were made into cartoons, and I mentioned Fish Police, and he says he was a big fan of Fish Police, but he didn't know there was a cartoon.
What country did he live in? Do you remember?
Gregor Black. Is from. Man, I can't remember.
I was going to say, unless he's not from North America,
he's American. I think he's from Michigan.
Okay, so if he's American, unless he was like just too young to remember it. Yeah. But I'm thinking if you're outside of North America, that may be why you didn't realize.
Yeah, because me being outside America, I didn't know there were comics of those. I saw Xenozoic Tales as Cadillacs and Dinosaurs, the cartoon. On TV, and I met a couple of guys online who said they only remembered the property from the arcade game.
Yeah,
a lot of what happens also is people forget that they get too personal. They really think if they're watching the video. I've told you this before. They'll be watching a YouTube video and somebody will say something, and they think they're talking to them directly, even though they don't know them. Some people get easily embarrassed if they make a mistake in a video. There's just people who get in the mind frame of trying to not take things too personal and stuff. A mistake is a mistake. It's not a big deal. Right. You put yourself on the internet, people are going to correct you. I welcome it. That's how I beat it, because
I don't mind someone correcting me. Some people get on and
as long as they're right.
If someone's hostile in the comments section, I just delete them and never mention it.
Right. Yeah.
Never mentioned it.
The fact is somewhere in it for drama and clicks and put the community in comics is just a stepping stone, not caring who they hurt or how they came across. We're way past of all that. But to be honest with you, there's so many new people with that. There was one person, 2 incidents that it's never been the same. It really killed what the community was. That's why a lot of people
back to Sleepy's comment when he says, "I swear most people think YouTube community started 3 years ago," because it probably did. It's circular. It like restarts itself every 3 years. Because when I think about, I've been making YouTube videos for 6-7 years now, and just to think of in that fairly short amount of time, how many people have come and gone.
Yeah. I think I only noticed 4 or 5 years ago. And I started, I think, Tim, I first noticed you, but the person I started interacting with first was Rez Reeds, and she doesn't have her channel now.
Yeah, she's already gone.
I helped her channel pop. I put her on Twitter and then told people to check her stuff out, and then she lost her mind. I'll put it out there. I mean, she's still doing comics and stuff.
No, she's not. She's not on. She occasionally posts stuff on Instagram. That's the only place I see her. And come to think of it, I haven't even seen her on that in a while.
Yeah, it was pipitiful at the end.
Yep. I'm a friend on Facebook, and mostly she talks about her business or cooking, because now she's in a vegan vibe, and she does her own cheese, her own vegan cheese, and the stuff she posted, it looks great, and I comment on it. But she's not doing comic stuff anymore.
Yeah, I don't even know if I'm friends with her on Facebook. Sometimes you can be friends with someone on Facebook and you never see their posts.
Right.
Yeah.
The drama with her got bad.
That's one thing I hate about Facebook is the ratios they use for their news feeds. Is like you'll discover, and you'll like 3 days later somebody make a comment. It was like, "Didn't you see such and such?" I'm like, "Well, no, I didn't." and then you go back to their page or whatever, looked at, well, yeah, there it was. It just interests me to see how much stuff I'm actually missing.
Mm-hmm.
What
we got here? It recycles every 2 years. Yeah.
2-3 years around there.
Just like Marvel and DC.
I'm from generation 1.5. You had Constant Bromstar, CTC Spirit, Cacti 8. There's one guy I'm forgetting, and it blows my mind. I can't think of him because he still pops up every now and then. But anyway, you had those guys, and I came in because just they found me, and that's when I found out that people were doing this. And then I saw the second generation came, and then like clockwork, you knew when the next one was going to come in. I mean, it was really cool.
Yeah.
It's when Gamersgate came in and all the video game people wanted to start doing comics because their community fell apart or something, that it got shaky there for a while. What we got here?
Story.
Rez was heartbroken by her behind. I thought she got into some fight with other. She kind of wore her heart on her sleeve a lot of times.
Yeah, once she what I saw of it, once she got involved, I don't know. Once she got called out, she started giving as much as she gave. That's what happened with her. Yeah, it was sad.
Yeah, I met her in Port. Never heard of howling on something, but they're not sure.
Yeah, it's like I told you the other day. I was talking about. I went on the Gray Man's channel. He's from London, and I mentioned your name, and he says Howler Mouse. Never heard of him. And okay. Okay, maybe it happens. I mean,
I love it when people sometimes dismissively, sometimes not. You'll bring up anything.
It's not dismissive.
Right, but what I'm getting at is somebody says something, never heard of it, and I'm thinking, well, they've never heard of you either.
Now look,
yeah,
I expect not to be heard of.
Yeah,
by 150 views, no one's going to have heard of me.
Well,
yeah, and we all end up following 100 or more than 100 people, and we're bound to know some that the other ones don't, and maybe some of those actually have 20,000 followers. And okay, maybe we.
I don't think I ever heard of Paolo before we started. Before Tim invited him on the show. I don't think so.
Right? Well, here, I don't think so. See, here's what it is to me. I'm kind of stuck at the beginning when I came in this. When we came into this, it was actually 75 to 80 people, and I'm talking about the people who just watched and commented were part of it. We all actually interacted or knew each other somehow like that, and it was small. So in my mind, that's what it's always been. My channel, whatever you want to say what it was, or if my name was out there and stuff or whatever, peaked around 2016. After that, I stopped putting into my channel like I used to and all that stuff, because all at once I had a guy in Florida making a living with a newspaper article using my videos without giving me credit, and people were sending me his articles and stuff, and I saw it. Why is somebody calling me? And then like the drama was going on, and then Comicsgate started, and people were getting me confused with other channels, and it was just becoming a headache. And then people started trying to take down my channel. So it was one of those things where I was just like, okay, whatever. And it just sort of, I stopped putting out like history lessons and all that stuff and everything. Just kind of kept going with it. But the thing about it is that it was still keeping it in mind of like back in the days when it was really 75 or 80 of us, together. That's all I've ever wanted from this, what I came into, because it was great and fun. I'm not saying it's not good now, but back then it was like golden. It was like a whole bunch of us found each other with this hobby. We were mailing stuff back and forth. We were talking on the phone. We'd meet up in the real world if people were traveling. I mean, it was completely different,
You could all know each other. Yeah, I have no idea how many comic book fans would be. I probably only hear from 20 people, I would say.
From around 2013 to 2016, people would they would see me at these comic book conventions and get a picture with me. There were some people that were starry-eyed, And there's some people who were disappointed meeting me because I was exactly the same. I don't know what you're thinking. But my favorite one that to me is in a nutshell of how I look at YouTube. This is my favorite story because this is exactly how I see it. I was at Heroes Con, probably around 2016. Towards the end of the Saturday, I'm sitting there and I'm going through some books. And I turn around and I can feel two people looking at me. And I turn around and there's these two kids, about 18, 19, 20, looking at me. And they're just doing this number. And I say something to them. I'm like, hi, I'm Howler Mouse. I'm Tim. How you doing? You having a good time? And one guy slowly turns to the other guy and goes, he's so short. Like it made it better. Like it made it better that I was short. That's YouTube to me. That's YouTube to me. That was me peaking in 2016. And that's my happiest moment.
I don't think I was with you at that time of day, was I?
I think we were there together. We just kind of
wondered because I was thinking if somebody would have said that and I'd have heard it, I would have probably bust out laughing.
Well,
oh, that's funny.
So I kind of acknowledge I was a big influence on the YouTube thing, but all I did was talk about comics. It never went to my head. I'm a short guy when you meet me. I love it.
You got the Tom Cruise line.
Yeah, and I've quit 2 or 3 times.
You're not that short. You're not like Jawa sized.
Nah. I don't know. I don't know how, but they just act like it was just better that I was short. That makes it so much better.
Oh, gotcha.
What auctions are Sleepy Reader and Pope Cerebus talking about? The rise of the YouTube auctions.
Where we at? Where we at?
A couple down from there. Pope Cerebus says that's what I thought. Sleepy, I'm 3+ years and I watched before, but I remember the rise of the YouTube auction. And then says, yeah, the auctions really changed things, I think. I know I haven't seen many auctions. Besides, I know the New York Warriors do an auction every week, but they're the only ones I know.
Yeah,
I haven't paid that much attention to auctions to know.
I remember once I subscribed to an auction channel and I got bored after 3 or 4 videos because, well, I'm not watching the auction and all you're doing is putting comic covers on displays. Well, that's boring.
If you're not buying the comics, then auctions aren't very interesting.
Yeah, and if they're doing books you're not interested in, that's just even more so. So now I have to ask, and Sleepy Reader brought that up. Sleepy Reader, how tall are you?
In my mind, he's like 6'4". I don't know why. I'll go ahead and tell you, I'm 5'10", 5'11", depending on the day.
You sure about that?
Yeah, I got measured I was at the doctor's office.
Right.
I was at the doctor's office. They weighed and measured me. Even I was a little surprised.
Okay.
Why would anyone say you were short? If you're 5'10",
because these 2 kids were like 6'3" and 6'2".
Yeah, I'm
5'11".
I'm 6'2".
Okay, yeah. Damien looks taller because he's lean. Yeah. He watches what he eats when he shows himself eating and reviewing comics at the same time. So he's always going for those things with granola and vegetables on it.
It's all that beer that he drinks that makes him skinny.
When you say you're 5'11", were you 5'11" when you were 24 like me? Because I was 5'11" when I'm 24. I'm not really 5'11" anymore when you measure me. I'm more like 5'10" and a half now because you shrink as you get older.
Gore Vidal just nailed it. Like checking out the
Travis is the tall one. Yeah.
Yeah, hearing how tall Oddfellow's thought was cracked me up. Checking all the older videos and stuff, they're all still there. I mean, if mine, I go back and I listen to, I was on a potato of a computer and the sound kills me on some of them.
And I made most of my videos so that you can watch them at 100 years from now.
Yeah.
Actually,
I don't do stuff. Yeah. These are the comics that I bought this week. Yeah, I don't care.
Yeah, I watched Paulo's Nexus video just a few days ago.
I like showing the comics I bought this week.
You're just mad you don't get weekly
comics in Portugal.
I am mad that I don't buy weekly comics. But you talk about the comics, each of the comics that you buy, and the guys okay. So I bought, and that's the thing about most haul videos. They kind of get repetitive. I mean, I bought this, and I bought this.
Unless you're giving them something about them. That's because most people buy the comics and never read them.
I'll tell you something about the older community that people seem to forget. and I don't even know if they still have it, but there used to be a comic book store out of Canada that was in a mall, and there's other people doing it also and stuff, but you had contests left and right. Now, I know people still do contests every now and then, but it would be like trivia contest, best question contest, and all this stuff. You would get signed books and major books and hardbacks and stuff. The prizes were pretty big, and people were doing this trying to get more people to subscribe to them. And some people would work and some it didn't. The ones that didn't would lose their shit and make a video like you know, and all this stuff like you're kind of killing yourself here, you know.
That just reminded me. I was just thinking, I haven't seen a contest video in so long.
Yeah, because it doesn't give you views. One of the rules people would do is you had to be over 18 and you had to be subscribed.
Right.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, but Matter Rock still does the contest roundup, the ones that he sends up to.
64-page special. All his videos are contest entries. So I know there's still contests going on.
Yeah, they're out there. They're not like they used to be. Now, Sleeping Reader, remember this. I've done 2 contests that I can remember. And one was where I karaoke'd I think it was a Cheap Trick song. And now I knew I couldn't sing, but I didn't know I couldn't sing at all.
You didn't know just how bad. I still think karaoke is the Japanese word for bad idea.
Yeah. So I did this video and I put it on my computer and then I put it on YouTube and I did it to where it was private and I did a contest where and I told them you're going to see me singing badly and then you can tell people how bad it was. Sleepy Reader won it and I was just waiting to get completely demolished. It was really bad. But apparently I remember him saying I had the moves. There's just no voice there. You know, he was very nice.
Is this video still in existence, Tim?
Yeah, I think it's still locked up. I
would like to see that now that you bring it up.
Well, I'm going to have a contest. You'll have to win, sir. But the other one, I can remember, the last one I did, I only did like 2 or 3 of them. I think they were like for anniversary things. But I did one where I went through my books and I got some really nice hardbacks to make space. And I'm like, I can sell them or I can just do a contest. So I did a contest. I did a live drawing. And what was so funny is I had all these people who'd watched all my videos and I'd known them in the comments for years, or they had channels and stuff, right? And some kid won that I never heard of. I mean, I was ready to say, like, man, this guy go way back and he's watched this stuff. And I pulled this guy's name out and I'm like, trying not to say, what the fuck is this? You know, and then I never saw him again. He took his channel down and everything. I no idea who he was, but he got a hell of a haul. I'll tell you that right now.
Yeah. I won a couple of contests back in the day. I think I won one of like second place in one of Manny NYC's. And I won another one. Oh, I forget who it was. I can't remember. I made videos about the hall, so I'll have to look it up.
Yeah.
This probably won't come as a surprise to you, Jared, but I've actually won 2 pun competitions.
Oh.
One of them was for Dark Horse Comics for the Star Wars series, and the other one's by Columbia, the clothing manufacturer.
There used to be people who just started channels to enter contests. I didn't know that.
There you go.
It doesn't surprise me, but my mind just doesn't work that way to.
Right. Because that's not something you'd ever do.
You know, he's talking about trivia earlier. I'm usually pretty good at trivia, but then when Paolo brought out that one series from like 1985, like if you asked me what date something was, other than like the Battle of Hastings in 1066, you got me there. So
I wish I could remember it. I remember I did this thing where I showed some videos of some comics in my collection, and 1 or 2 of them were like throwaway books. And everybody went completely apeshit for some series I put out there. And I remember I kind of stumbled in the video because it was a live show, but it was when we had hangouts or something that you did it through. And I remember like telling myself, keep talking, man, because I was just like blown away that there was people that liked this book. And that was one of the things that made me want to keep doing this. Like, you know, there's people that actually read their comics and, you know, and all that stuff. So. All right, man. I tell you what, guys, I got about 15 more minutes in me. We can keep going or whatever you want to do.
I'm kind of tired. I think I'm going to have to call it a night.
Yeah.
I actually have more time than usual because we're already back to winter time. So so we started 1 hour earlier than usual for me.
Our clock changed tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm so looking forward. I'm so looking forward to it getting back to normal time. You know,
I'm not looking forward to it being dark out at 5 p.m. But you know,
that doesn't bother me.
Yeah, I'm a fall guy anyway and stuff. I hate losing an hour through the year. It's not natural. We did that for less than 0.1% of the population in 1968 because the farmers needed more time to work. Well, they have better equipment now. Okay. We don't.
There was 1 year we tried to stay with the summertime because that puts us in the same time zone as Central Europe. But people didn't really like it because we were getting to work at 7:30, 8 o'clock, and it was still dark out there.
Right.
Man.
Wake up in the dark, go home in the dark. It's winter.
See, this is what I'm talking about. The smaller community back in the day, everybody knew what your favorite book or character was. Let me show you something real quick, and then we'll get out of here. I'll be right back. I know where it's at.
Yeah, nobody's gonna know what my favorite character is because from the videos I made, I usually don't talk about Marvel.
Yeah, I don't have a favorite character.
All right.
Oh, I'd have to be hard pressed to come up with one.
Okay, what we have here, guys, this was by Why Not Art when he had a channel. I'm still friends with him on Instagram and stuff. And he took a bunch of the YouTubers, I don't know, this might be 2013 or something, and he put their faces on their favorite character, and he sent a print to all of us.
Gotcha.
There's Tim Starman.
Captain Hans, Constant Bromstarter, Nightcrawler, and this was just from watching our videos.
Right.
Hippie's Collectible with Captain America. And and stuff like that. That's what I'm talking about. That's when there was a lot of fun going on back then. You'd get packages sent to you. You'd have people send you artwork and stuff. A lot of people started putting up PO boxes and stuff so they could get stuff like that. It was pretty wild there.
Cool.
Great. I'm gonna be reminiscing all weekend. Like, where are those people?
Just nostalgia ain't what it used to be.
There was one guy quit making comic book videos and he started doing vape videos. Just pictures of him showing how big of a vape cloud he can make. And I was just sort of like, no, this is not
the whole thing.
Yeah.
The only type of smoking videos that I would be interested in is if somebody did cigar reviews. And I remember once seeing a guy doing cigar reviews, but only.
Almost all the people on that Why Not Art print are gone. And Tim loves his gold.
Gore Vidal he's very comfortable with me now, man. He just ribbed me, and well played, sir. Well played. I'm speechless. I'm speechless.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah,
maybe it's in psychology class, but I remember reading something once where it's like you can tell how comfortable you are with somebody is when you get to the point that you can make fun of them and not be offended.
Well,
there's an old Pogo panel that I always liked that had him. I can't remember if it was him or Albert the alligator talking, saying, "If they can fight good and forgive, they'll end up friends. But if they start screaming right off the bung, they'll end up enemies," or something like that.
If you're a stranger in town, that's good. If you're a stranger in town, you're not part of the community until the women get together, gossip, and laugh at you in your face. That's when you're part of it. That's when you know you're home. So, oh no. This is getting bad, man. This is getting bad. All I gotta do is if that thing is written by Bendis, that's it. I'm quitting comics. Right there.
Even I don't want to see that.
You could throw the Paper Girls in there, maybe.
When is Saga coming back?
Nope, no idea. Have not heard.
I don't believe it will.
No, yeah. Saga, I remember when Saga hit big and they said it was the next Star Wars, and I read it, and I'm like, this guy read heavy metal back in the day. It's what it felt like. Yeah. Guys, you guys ready to wind it up? I mean, we're 7 minutes shy of 3 hours. That's a great show. Thanks for everybody popping in, man. I mean, once they got here, we actually kept quite a few people.
So good to see everybody in the comments.
Yeah. All right. Later, guys.
Catch you later.
Bye.
Bye.
See you.